Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, and we are live at Twin Peaks in Madison today ahead of the NFL's annual player selection meeting, which will take place tonight. As you know, that is the NFL Draft. Happy draft day to everyone out there. We are live at Twin Peaks in Madison. Come on out. The draft show with Chris Sanders and Derek Mason and Trevor Maddich and yours truly starts at 6 o'clock right here at Twin Peaks in Madison. The chairman of the board, David Reed, is with us today. Hello, David Reed.
We made it. We're here, Jared. We are here.
Happy draft day to you. Although this is, and I don't want to say depressing because, again, you know, it's an honor to have the number one pick, I guess, in some regard. It feels kind of like an honor.
But it's almost like it's Christmas Day, but you stumbled upon what your parents had actually gotten you like months ago. So you know what it's going to be, but you're still kind of excited. So you actually get to touch it and feel it and play with it. That's kind of what today feels like.
That is the truth. In fact, we know they're going to draft Cam Ward. That's not going to be a surprise. But what happens the rest of the night, I think, is going to be fascinating. What it means for the 35th pick, I think, is going to be fascinating. And, you know, who are they going to be targeting? And then just personally, what do some of these teams do? That's interesting to me as well. I mean, is Mike Vrabel really going to take the short arm tackle after he took Skoronski a couple of years ago and refused to play him at tackle? I don't know. Where's Ashton Genty going to go? And, of course, the story of the night, I think across the country, is what's going to happen to Shador Sanders. And I am fascinated by that too, even though Shador Sanders, big talking point on this program for months and months, doesn't matter anymore because we know they're taking the other guy. But I want to start on this because technically the Titans have not officially drafted Cam Ward yet. That will be a move that happens tonight at 7:09 when Roger Goodell gets to the podium and announces that Cam Ward's the pick. But they did make a move overnight. I woke up this morning and saw that they had signed Tyler Lockett to a 1-year, $4 million deal up to $6 million or whatever it is. Again, it's not my money and the cap's fake, so who cares? But a short deal, a small deal for Tyler Lockett, who was an absolute stud with the Seattle Seahawks. I'm not expecting him to be an absolute stud here. But it was a move that I woke up to and I said, oh my God, I love this move. In fact, on March 17th, I tweeted, hey, the guy that's out there whose price I'd like to drop a little bit, but who I'd like to add was Tyler Lockett. I don't want Amari Cooper. I think he's totally finished. But Tyler Lockett, there's something there. And the reason why I like this move, and again, I think everybody that listens to this show knows that if I had a problem with the moves the Titans make, I would have no problem in sharing that. But the reason why I like the Tyler Lockett move is because Tyler Lockett is a veteran possession receiver who is durable. He plays out wide. He played 70% out wide last year, technically 29% in the slot. Does not drop the football. He had 3 drops last year and averages 3 drops over his career. And so he's a solid, veteran, durable wide receiver. He plays pretty much every week. And while he is older, he'll turn 33 during the season. He never really was a speed guy, as in running down the field and using that athleticism. That was never his bread and butter, though he could be a guy that used to stretch the field right around 2019, 2020, 2021. He has never been just an only speed, only athleticism kind of guy. DK Metcalf on the other side, that's a speed guy. That's a guy who runs deep and eventually into his 30s. That's going to go away. That's not Tyler Lockett's game. Now, do I think the Tyler Lockett addition is some sort of miraculous breakthrough as far as the Titans are concerned? Of course not. But to say Calvin Ridley and Tyler Lockett and Luther Burden III at wide receiver with Van Jefferson and Bryce Oliver to round out the room, that's a lot better looking than it was yesterday when it was Ridley and Van Jefferson and Bryce Oliver. And again, these aggregators on Twitter like to put out these graphics to get people to retweet them and things like that. And it's like, who's stopping this offense? and it would have Ward's face, and it would have Ridley's face, and it would have Pollard's face, and it would have Chigg's face. And it's like, who's going to be the second receiver you put up there? Every team has a receiver. And it was Burks. It was Traylon freaking Burks, who's A, hurt, and B, sucks. These are the type of moves, the Tyler Lockett move, these are the types of moves they need to make for Cam Ward. Veteran, established players who, again, I'm not looking for Tyler Lockett to be a Pro Bowler. I'm not looking for the Titans on the veteran free agent market a month and a half after free agency, the day before the draft or the day of the draft. I'm not looking for the Titans to go out and get a game changer. I'm looking for them to get reliable players to help supplement the young quarterback in his development. When Cam Ward throws the ball, I need Tyler Lockett to be there. When he's open, I need him to catch it. I'm not expecting the Tyler Lockett of 2018, who had a quarterback rating when targeted of 158.3, which, by the way, is ridiculous when I saw that today. I'm not looking for the Tyler Lockett of 2021 who averaged 16 yards a catch. I'm expecting Tyler Lockett to be a pro. I'm expecting him to handle his business like a pro. I'm expecting him to help out younger receivers if they bring them in like a pro. And quite frankly, the Titans don't have enough established veteran professionals on their team right now. Every single pro that they could add to this team, like Tyler Lockett, they will not be here when this team enters, if this team ever does enter, knock on wood, a Super Bowl window. But if you're going to grow a young core, and right now I think we would assume that that core is Cam Ward and J.C. Latham and Jarvis Brownlee and Tavondre Sweat and Dan Moore Jr. and whomever they pick at 35 or in the second round tomorrow night. You need that group to have some success. You need that group to get some confidence. You need that group to start headed in the right direction. That's why I woke up this morning and I saw the news that the Titans were adding Tyler Lockett, that kind of veteran guy that can show those guys what success is in the NFL. And not only show them what success is in the NFL, but help them achieve it. On 3rd and 4, Cam Ward can go to Tyler Lockett with the football. When it comes to blocking it for a receiver, Tyler Lockett can show a Luther Burden or an Emeka Ibuka or one of those guys the way. I heard the cut we played earlier on the midday show today. Yesterday, Kirk Herbstreit talked about the Titans need an alpha and the Titans need a leader, and Cam Ward can be that alpha and Cam Ward can be that leader. But I don't think you can expect, and I don't think it would be fair to expect Cam Ward to lead the team on day one. And there are going to be other young players that the Titans are going to need to, again, show the way to. Think about that core that the Titans had in their last quote-unquote window. Lawan and Henry and Byard and Simmons and A.J. Brown and Ryan Tannehill. But don't forget about what DeMarco Murray did for this franchise so that those young guys, and I know Tannehill wasn't there for that, but the core was, so that those young guys could play in big professional moments and big professional games in their first couple years in the league. That's what you have to do here. You have to go get the DeMarco Murrays and the Delaney Walkers and the Brian Arakpos so that this team, when it's time for them to compete, will have confidence, will have stability, and will know how to be professionals. And that's what Tyler Lockett represents. Tyler Lockett also represents filling a need. Because, again, we've made fun of the Titans for getting in front of everybody and saying you do not draft for need. You have to draft the best player available. And then they turn around and draft a need with the number 1 overall pick. And then all the talks that we have been about edge rusher and receiver at 35. Again, that would fill a need, but we do want them to take best player available. So how do you keep yourself from having to fill your draft board with needs? You sign veteran players for that spot. I had a buddy text me yesterday about Dan Moore and said, I can't believe we're paying $20 million for Dan Moore. I said, well, How else you want to get a starting left tackle? You want to force yourself into drafting one? Because last year you forced yourself into drafting a tackle, and not only did you not draft a left tackle, but you passed on Brock Bowers because of it. I don't want to do that tomorrow. And again, this Tyler Lockett signing, I think that puts them in the right direction. Again, he helps the team immediately, giving them somebody who can start opposite Calvin Ridley. Number two, he provides, I believe, a safety blanket for Cam Ward. Number three, he's durable and he's professional. And number four, again, you're trying to build a winner. This is the kind of guy you want on your team to help your younger players learn and grow and get established. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. So I want to start on that. The addition last night, Tyler Lockett, I love the move. Again, do I think it means the Titans are going to be for the Super Bowl? No. But for $4 million, it's fine. So does adding Tyler Lockett mean that the Titans are going to go draft an edge rusher tomorrow at 35? Is receiver Ibuka and Burden and McMillan, and are they off the board for tomorrow? We'll get into that next. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company again live at Twin Peaks, where the draft show starts tonight at 6. Get excited about that. 615-737-1025. It's Stillman and Company on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game.
you're not getting that Tyler Lockett, but you're still getting that good player. You still need another wide receiver with more explosiveness. But what he gives you is a veteran leader, a veteran in that locker room, a guy that doesn't miss games, a guy that's going to be reliable, not just playing, but also catching the football. He's not a guy that drops a lot of balls. So you can fit him in your offense. He doesn't need to be the main focal point, but he can get you those dirty yards that you need on 4th and 3 or 4th and 4. He can line up in the slot. You can move him around a little bit. He's not a deep threat anymore. He was at one point. He had the ability to get deep. Now he's working more so of the short to intermediate. Put him in the slot, let him run, these over routes, these deep out routes. Let him work in tandem with 2 other receivers or the tight end to find some space, because he's going to catch the ball. So you're getting a good player that is on the other side or entering into the other side of his career, but he's still playing good football.
There you go. That was D Mace today on the Tyler Lockett edition. So now I think the question has to be, Tyler Lockett is in the mix. Again, 1 year, $4 million contract, up to $6 million. What's this mean for pick 35 tomorrow? Now, I'm not ruling out, though I think it is unlikely, I am not ruling out that the Titans could trade back into the first round, especially at the end if there's a player they just absolutely love. I thought about this earlier today, but remember 2 years ago, we were at the other Twin Peaks out in Cool Springs. We're out in Madison today. And we were out there in Cool Springs at Twin Peaks. And if you remember, it was a very odd day, which started off with Diana Rossini just constantly hammering this notion that the Titans were preparing a trade up with Arizona to 3 to go get CJ Stroud. And the betting markets were just screaming CJ Stroud is going to the Titans at 3. And then about an hour before the draft, and we were following the betting markets, but an hour before the draft, all of a sudden the betting market started to say, no, it doesn't look like it's going to be CJ Stroud here at number 3. It looks like CJ Stroud's going to go number 2. And everybody kept saying the Texans are going to draft Stroud, but they really love Will Anderson. And so they'll be passing on Will Anderson in order to draft CJ Stroud. And then out of nowhere, the Texans, now they had 2 first-round picks that year, but they jumped back up to number 3 and they took Will Anderson. I'm not saying the Titans are going to do something like that where they get their quarterback and then jump back up to number 4 and draft Ashton Genty or something like that. But I would not rule out if there's something there and, hey, the price is right and it's a guy you love, whatever, go get him. But I do wonder, does signing Tyler Lockett mean, okay, we don't have to take a receiver at 35? And I'm just going to say this, it wouldn't affect me one way or another, because I believe the Titans have to draft the best player available. And again, position does matter here. Like, you're not drafting a punter if he's the best player available at 35. But I still think the Titans have got a really focused best player available. And I'm going to tell you why. Because everything helps Cam Ward. We talk about Donovan Jackson, who I think is going to go tonight in the first round. Some people think he'll go in the second round. He's the guard/tackle at Ohio State. He was their starting left guard for the first half of the season. He was great. The left tackle got hurt. He kicked out to left tackle. He was great there. I think he goes tonight. But if he's there at 35, I would be very, very interested in drafting Donovan Jackson, just because I think Donovan Jackson's a really good player. And I'm not going to turn down good players. The other thing is, I don't look at the defense as something that would not help Cam Ward. When we talk about helping Cam Ward, all I hear about is offensive line and receivers. And look, I think Cam Ward desperately needs a tight end. Desperately needs somebody, better than Chigakonkwo that he can throw the ball to when times get tough. And I know Tyler Lockett can do some of that. But again, I've always believed, hey man, a young quarterback's best friend is his tight end, not his slot receiver. Veteran quarterbacks, Tom Brady as a veteran, his best friend can be a slot receiver. But go back and watch Brady as a young guy, and you'll see how much he threw the ball to Jermaine Wiggins and Christian Fourier. Again, those were his tight ends. But defense also helps Cam Ward. I know this sounds crazy, but when this comes to football, I had somebody at the end of the show yesterday tweet me, and I had to put my head in my hands. I couldn't believe how stupid this was. But somebody tweeted me and goes, I am so tired of hearing Jared Stillman say Joe Burrow is elite. Joe Burrow has been in the NFL for 5 years, and he's only finished the season 3 times, and he got to 1 Super Bowl because Ryan Tannehill gift-wrapped it with 3 interceptions in a playoff game. And I thought, you people really can't be that stupid. Joe Burrow has a winning record against Patrick Mahomes. You're right. Joe Burrow has been injured in 2 of the 5 seasons. And in 2 of the other 5 seasons, he's been to the AFC Championship game at Cincinnati. Joe Burrow last year threw for 4,900 yards and 43 touchdowns. That is elite. He is an assassin out there. But again, because the Bengals didn't win games last year because their defense was god-awful, people just say, that sucks. Nope, not good. That's how we view the quarterback. It's crazy, and it shouldn't totally be this way. But why are the 2 guys that we look at and we say those are the 2 young, promising quarterbacks, Jaden Daniels and C.J. Stroud? Because they win. Justin Herbert threw for 5,000 yards his second year in the NFL. And again, we'd all take Justin Herbert. And if Justin Herbert were in this draft, he'd go number 1 overall to the Titans. But it's not like when we talk about the elite quarterbacks, I'm allowed to mention Justin Herbert because he doesn't win. Well, what helps a young defense win, or what helps a young quarterback win? Defense. When Josh Allen was being brought along slowly by the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen had the number 2 defense in the NFL in 2018 and the number 3 defense when they made the playoffs in 2019. I thought Josh Allen sucked after his first 2 years in the league. And I can't be the only person in the world that did that. But they made the playoffs. They beat the Titans in a game at Orchard Park where the Titans had about 8 different opportunities to win the game. Nick Williams blew like 2 opportunities to make a play. Taywan Taylor fumbled the football. Dion Lewis fumbled the football. That was a nasty Buffalo Bill defense. Josh Allen threw for like 85 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception in that game. But they won because of the defense. So if they draft a defensive player tomorrow at 35, I still think that helps Cam Ward. If they draft a receiver, clearly that's going to help Cam Ward. If they draft a tackle because it's the best player there and they think this guy is going to be a star in the NFL and they can't believe that he's there with the pick, take him. Again, Derrick Henry was not a need pick. They had just traded for DeMarco Murray. Derrick Henry's the best player, in my opinion, to ever wear a Titan uniform. You can even make the argument when they drafted Eddie George that wasn't a need pick. The Titans traded down in the first round, then traded back up to get Eddie George, but they traded down to get Eddie George. At the beginning, they had Rodney Thomas as their running back, and I know nobody knows who Rodney Thomas is. May he rest in peace. But ask Chris Sanders about Rodney Thomas because he rushed for about 1,000 yards the year before they drafted Eddie George. So, again, I think an edge rusher that can get after the quarterback, I think that helps Cam Ward. I think a wide receiver helps Cam Ward. I think offensive linemen help Cam Ward. I think a lockdown guy in the secondary, and I'm talking about a real difference maker out there. I'm not talking about some guy that can start. I'm talking about if you draft one of those safeties that absolutely makes a difference, like Xavier McKinney of the Packers, you draft that kind of guy, that helps Cam Ward. Because if you're going to ask Cam Ward to score 18 points instead of asking him to score 28 points, that makes his life a lot easier. So tomorrow, to me, Tyler Lockett doesn't change anything. I'm still thinking best player available. And then I think the question has to be, when we look at how the board comes out, are there going to be players in that 45 and down range to where you can trade down and still add another player, but still get somebody that you really like that helps Cam Ward? Again, not just helps him tomorrow, but big picture helps him develop into a star quarterback, because if you're going to have a Super Bowl window that opens, it's going to be based on whether or not Cam Ward makes it. Again, you don't have to just take a receiver. The last time, I shouldn't say the last time the Titans took a quarterback this high, but because they did take Mariota. But when the Titans took Vince Young, and we actually have the cut of when Sally Reese called into George Plaster's show to bitch about Jeff Fisher. But the Titans had a second-round pick in that draft. It ended up being Lindale White. And the story is that Floyd was on the phone with Devin Hester, and Jeff Fisher and Norm Chow, who was the offensive coordinator at USC, and Lindale White was at USC, and Jeff Fisher had a chubby for USC, that he basically said, hey, we want Lindale White instead of Devin Hester. And Floyd said, all right, sorry, Devin Hester, I got to go. And they called Lindale White. And if you look back at that, you could say, well, Lindale White, that running game helps Vince Young in that moment in time. Now ask yourself this, who would you rather have, Devin Hester or Lindale White? One of them is in the Hall of Fame. The other, who knows? 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. And coming up next, I looked at Daniel Jeremiah. He's got his final mock draft out. I looked at Dane Brugler. He's got his final mock draft out. We talked about Peter Schrager, who does one mock draft based upon what he's hearing in the league. And there are some trends that I am noticing that may go down tonight. We'll hit those trends next. What to expect in round one outside of the Titans. We know what they're going to do. We'll get to that coming up. 615-737-1025. If you want to weigh in here on the program, that's 615-737-1025 here on our program. And let me tell all the fine folks, tune into 94.9 The Fan as the Sounds will take on the Durham Bulls. They'll play 2 today at First Horizon Park. How about that? Pregame begins at 5:20. First pitch is at 5:35. Game 1. That's for game 1. Coverage available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan. Presented by Twin Peaks and by Family Leisure. Also, join Robbie Stanley and 102.5 The Game from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Coleman Tractor and White House this Saturday for Kubota Orange Days. There'll be exclusive deals on compact tractors, zero turns, and more with special financing available. Sale runs from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. with demo deals, giveaways, and lunch from 11 to 1. That's the Coleman Tractor of White House, located at 3631 Highway 31 West this Saturday.
Stephen A., what's your reaction to Sanders now being projected to fall to pick 29?
I'm appalled by it. I really don't like it at all, because I think that you can't tell me, guys. Listen, I'm going to look forward to watching y'all throughout the day talk about the NFL. You know how I feel about you guys. You know that I feel that no matter what I think I know, I learn more from you guys every single day because y'all all played in the NFL, and I'm proud to talk about the job that you do exceptionally covering the league the way that you do. I'm just an outsider that's covered sports for over 30 years. And I don't like the fact that I'm looking at a guy that has gone from speculation about being the number 1 overall pick between him and Cam Ward to being maybe the number 3 pick to the New York Giants, to being the number 6 pick of the Las Vegas Raiders, to being number 9 for the New Orleans Saints, to dropping down to 21 at the Pittsburgh Steelers, to going in the mock drafts where he's going to be 29th, whether it's Mel Kiper Jr. or somebody else saying it. Okay, not that he deserves it, but they're saying that's what's projected. I'm trying to figure out what the hell is this precipitous drop all about? That's my problem.
There you go. That was Stephen A. Smith today. And I think the story across the country today, at least as far as I'm concerned, is what happens with Shador Sanders. Shador Sanders tweeted out just moments ago, said, I'm built for whatever happens today. I'm like, well, what about tomorrow? Because what are the odds that Shador Sanders is there? By the way, I cannot, if Shador Sanders does not go in round 1 of the NFL draft, I cannot wait to see how Stephen A. Smith and Louis Riddick and all of those guys just have a nuclear meltdown. I think deep down inside, I'm rooting for Shador to fall out of round 1. Now, we will have our mock draft, our final mock draft right here. We will have that coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, and I will say Shador Sanders does go in round 1. So I did this yesterday where I looked at Peter Schrager at ESPN's mock draft because Peter Schrager says, I do one mock draft, and this is based on what I'm hearing from people in the league. And then Daniel Jeremiah always puts out a mock draft the morning of the NFL draft, and Dane Brugler did one too from The Athletic. And so what I did, just to get a feel of who's expected to be there in round 2, who, is on some boards kind of slipping and is not. I said, okay, I'm going to take these 3 mock drafts, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to go through the list and say, all right, Travis Hunter, he's out on all 3. Cam Ward, out on all 3. Abdul Carter, out on all 3. Ashton Genty, out on all 3. And I'm going to say, okay, what are the trends here? 3 separate people, different sourcing, different info, talking to different people, different jobs for the most part. And so there were a couple of trends that I started noticing. Number 1, all 3, Schrager, DJ, and Brugler all have Jackson Dart going to the Giants at the end-ish of the first round with a trade up. So everybody is speculating that the Giants will take Abdul Carter with the 3rd pick and then will move up for Jackson Dart. Number 2, none of the 3 mock drafters have Luther Burden III going in the first round. In fact, according to Dane Brugler's top 100 prospects, Luther Burden at 27 is the only guy of the first 33 picks who is not taken in at least one of these mock drafts. So we've talked a lot about Luther Burden, and if Luther Burden is there at 35, there are a lot of Titan fans that want them to take Luther Burden right then, right there. Number 3. Another name that Titan fans absolutely love. 2 of the 3, Dane Brugler and Daniel Jeremiah, do not have James Pierce going in the first round. Peter Schrager does have James Pierce Jr. at Tennessee going in the first round. So 2 of the 3 say no on James Pierce. Brugler does not have Shador Sanders going in round 1. Both Daniel Jeremiah and Schrager have Shador Sanders going. I believe they both have him going at 21 to the Steelers. Now, here's what's fascinating about Shador. If Shador is still on the board after today, that's great news for the Titans. And I'll tell you why. Because if Sanders is sitting there, they can say to anybody else, hey, if you want to trade for this pick, there's a chance Sanders is there. So if you want Sanders, what would you offer if he's there? But also, it feels very likely to me that the Browns at 33 or the Giants at 34 would take Shador Sanders if they're there. I mean, let's say the Giants trade up for Jackson Dart. The general manager's kid was posting an Instagram story or a Snapchat story or one of those stories about Jackson Dart. Let's say he's there. Let's say they take Jackson Dart. If they take Jackson Dart and they move back with a team like Minnesota, who's definitely not going to take Shador Sanders, I mean, you could be getting a huge pull in exchange for that one. So I found that noticeable. Dane Brugler also does not have Emeka Egbuka going in round one, the sure-handed wide receiver from Ohio State. And then there's the one guy that each guy went in only one of the three mock drafts. Nick Anamori, the safety out of South Carolina, goes in Dane Brugler's mock draft, but not the other two. James Pierce went in Schrager's mock draft, but not the other two. Trey Amos, the corner from Ole Miss, went in Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft, but not the other two. And Trayvon Henderson, the running back at Ohio State, are the only players that went in only one of the three mock drafts. For the most part, all of the guys that went in one went in at least two, except for those guys, which means that just reading the tea leaves, they think Luther Burden's getting to you tomorrow, and maybe James Pierce Jr. too. Though I would not count on Donovan Ezeraku or Emeka Egbuka, the two players who I would highlight getting to the Titans there with the 35th pick. Did you just? Oh, okay, never mind. Because we're at Twin Peaks here in Madison, the call screener looks a little different. And so Freddie, who's been waiting, our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com. Freddie, who's been waiting, is on the thing. And it says in the comment box, Deion Sanders. But for a second, I thought it said Deion Sanders was on. I was like, wait a minute, what? Freddie, phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com. Freddie, go ahead.
Hey, yes, this is Freddie, not Deion. So
that would be something.
I'm answering Stephen A's question as to why the fall. And when you think about what you're getting with Shador, you're getting an extra QB coach / offensive coordinator that's going to have all the coaches' phone numbers and going to be in their ear the whole time. This is a guy so stable that he raged out of a press conference because somebody wouldn't call him Coach Prime.
That was actually Nick Suss of the Tennessean years and years ago that did that. I'm going to tell you that I don't think that that's helping Shador by any stretch of the imagination as far as teams are concerned. Freddie, thank you. Here's the issue, I think. Everybody took that big slanderous quote that one anonymous assistant coach said to Tom Pelissero at NFL Network about Shador Sanders, about how he was arrogant and he was entitled and it was the worst meeting in his life. But the last part of what he said is, he's not even that good. That, I think, is the thing. I think teams are looking at Shador Sanders and they're saying, Shador Sanders isn't that good. They didn't win a lot of games. Again, he was throwing through thin air up there in Colorado, which I guess helps. I don't know. I just hear people talking about that. Again, if you take Shador Sanders and you say, you know what, we're going to have Shador Sanders sit the bench. Jameis Winston, you're going to start. We're going to have Shador Sanders sit the bench. Mason Rudolph. Think about this. Let's say the Steelers draft Shador Sanders and Shador Sanders isn't ready, which means Mason Rudolph is their quarterback. You think Stephen A. Smith and Louis Riddick, you think they're bitching now. Imagine how much they're going to play. We all know Mason Rudolph. He stinks. They will not be able to handle it. That certainly bothers me. But I think the big issue here is he's not that good. That's what I believe. That's why I believe the Titans went to the pro day. I mean, I watched the pro day on TV, and the ball was wobbling out of his hands. This is a pro day. Throw a tight spiral, for God's sakes. We're talking about the first round. We're talking about the first overall pick. Throw a spiral. I just think he's not that good. That's just me. 615-737-1025. We are to your phone, 615-737-1025. Speaking of Luther Burden and James Pierce, two guys that it seems like might get there to 35. There is one thing about them that I'm just going to be honest with you and tell you that I don't know what I don't know, but it would be something that needs to be discussed ahead of time. We'll get to that coming up next. Here on Stillman and Company, again, we are live from Twin Peaks. Join us for the draft show, which starts tonight at 6 o'clock. Tomorrow's draft show at 6 o'clock will be live from Boomba's Pizza and Watch Bar in East Nashville. Again, coverage begins at 6 o'clock each day, and draft night in Nashville is presented by Hardee's, Parman Tractor and Equipment, Twin Peaks, Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, my guys, Shane Company, and Professional Home Improvements.
Mike, when it comes to the draft process and maybe a player who has some character issues from the college time, what's your philosophy in how you look at those guys and how you evaluate if they would still be a fit in this organization?
Well, I think the biggest thing you have to really determine is, have they learned from their mistakes? I think these guys are all, the young players, and we've all made certain mistakes in our lives. But really to try to, figure out, have they really learned from their prior mistakes, and are they a good person? Are they going to be good in the community? So, that there are players that do have some past issues that you really have to work through. And like I said, you just have to figure out, have they really learned from those mistakes?
Last question.
There you go. That was Mike Borgonzi talking about guys with off the field issues. And we all know before the draft, there's some times where teams have to do some more research on a guy. We hear, one NFC scout said there were some off the field issues with Johnny or Jimmy or Joey or whatever. And there are two names in which I have heard, again, just from media people talking. It's not like I've had somebody tell me, but I have heard from media people talking that Luther Burden III and James Pierce Jr. are guys that have character concerns circled around them. Now, some people get very offended when it comes to talking about somebody that you don't know and somebody you have no idea what James Pierce Jr.'s off-the-field concerns are. I have no idea what James Pierce Jr.'s off-the-field concerns are. But I'm also not an area scout. I'm also not somebody who works for NFL security or works for Titans security and is supposed to do these kind of background checks on these players to know, hey, this guy, he got DUI, but he's a good kid. This guy, he's a problem. That stuff's important. So when it comes to Luther, but that pick tomorrow at 35, if they use it at 35, that is a very, very important and very, very valuable pick. You cannot just waste that pick. So when it comes to Burden and Pierce, I don't know what issues surround them or don't surround them off the field. So I can't bang the table for the guy and say, oh, if James Pierce is there, you have to take him. Oh, if Luther Burden is there, you have to take him. But if they pass on him and then we find out, they did a little homework on Luther Burden and that's an issue, then I'll say, okay, you cannot take that guy. This is a team that does not have the leadership in the locker room to be able to take on high draft picks that have problems off the field. Cannot do it. Right now, their biggest leader on the team is a crybaby, and the other guy on defense allegedly just shot up a car dealership. You cannot take risks in the personality department. Unfortunately, it is what it is. 615-737-1025, and our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter says the Titans would kill to have a special teams player like Devin Hester. He was electric. Again, that's where overthinking it, or in the case of Mike Borgonzi, because trying to think of the right way to say this without getting in trouble. I believe that if Mike Borgonzi wants to take a player, Chad Brinker will accept it and let him take it no matter what. Now, I have no idea if that's true or not. That's just what I believe. I told somebody with the Titans the story of Bryant Mix. And David Reed, I'm going to ask you, do you know who Bryant Mix is?
Former MLB player?
Nope.
Bryant
Bryant Mix.
player.
Nope. Bryant Mix played football.
No clue then.
In the 1996 draft, the Houston Oilers selected Bryant Mix, a defensive lineman out of Alcorn State. They drafted Eddie George in the first round, and they drafted Bryant Mix in the second round. And the only reason I know who that is because Floyd told me that Bryant Mix was the one guy that he scouted, and he just did not like him. But every coach and every scout and everybody in the room just said, oh, we got to take him. And Floyd just didn't see it. But he figured if everybody else in the room says, hey, Bryant Mix, man, we got to take him, then maybe there's something they see that we don't. We've all dated that significant other who all of our friends are like, dude, she sucks. And then finally we see it. So I understand if everybody in the room saying, oh, no, don't take him, or we got to take him, and being swayed. But the lesson Floyd learned, and that was his, I believe, second draft as general manager, the lesson he learned was, if I don't see it, I'm not taking him. Now, maybe in the 5th round or something, but we're talking high picks. And that was the advice that I gave the Titans. That's what I told the Titans. I said, when it comes to taking somebody, again, Callahan can have his opinion, and Dave Ziegler can have his opinion, and Reggie McKenzie can have his opinion, and Brinker can have his opinion. But if Borgonzi actually has the authority, you take who you want to take, so you don't end up in a Bryant Mix situation or a Devin Hester situation. One texter, Phil, says, I am a biased Missouri fan. Luther Burden was criminally underutilized, but he's a team player through and through. Could have left and gone anywhere in the country, and he stayed. Eli Drinkwitz said he never once brought up money. They had to ask him if he was okay with his pay, and he said, I'm good, coach. Luther Burden is a gamer that you want on your team. Well, that's encouraging. But again, I don't know Luther Burden. And you would know more than I would as a Missouri fan, but you also don't know, like, the kid. And that's the hard part about this is you've got to try to study the backgrounds of 160 of these guys. One texter said, my Steelers are learning the hard way with George Pickens. Some teams don't care. And I am very fascinated by how Mike Borgonzi is going to approach all of this, because in Kansas City, they don't care. You can be a pain in the ass off the field. If you can play, they don't care. The Steelers, they always take these troubled players like Le'Veon Bell and Martavis Bryant and Antonio Brown and now George Pickens. And I do wonder, will these guys here start taking those guys? 615-737-1025 is our phone number. One texter says, being completely realistic, what is the craziest thing the Titans could do tonight? And there is one thing, again, I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it'll happen. But this is the one thing that if they did tonight, we already know they're going to pick Cam Ward. If they did this tonight, I would sleep like a little baby comfortably. I'll explain. We'll get to it next. Stillman and Company, live from Twin Peaks in Madison. Join us right here, 6 o'clock for the draft show. Trevor, Chris, Derek, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. We are live today at Twin Peaks in Madison. Come on out to the Peaks for draft night tonight. Right here, 6 o'clock, Chris, Derek, and Trevor. Reed, would I look like Adam Schefter if on the stream you see me texting on or you see me you see me texting on the stream? Would I look like Adam Schefter?
If by Adam Schefter you mean distracted and not paying attention to things at times, yes.
But no, to look like, hey, I'm like doing serious work here. And by doing serious
work, whatever makes you feel better.
I mean, texting with Caroline, but whatever. So one person asked, what's the craziest thing the Titans could do tonight? When's the meltdown going to happen tonight on the program? Well, we already know what the Titans are going to do. They're going to draft Cam Ward. But there is one thing that they could do tonight that would make me very, very happy. And it takes real cojones and real vision to do. And that would be after they draft Cam Ward. Cam Ward will have his picture with Roger Goodell right there on the podium. He'll go be interviewed by ESPN's Laura Rutledge. He'll be interviewed by NFL Network. He'll do a radio hit on Sirius XM NFL radio. And then he'll do a Zoom with the local media. Then he'll get on the plane and he'll fly to Nashville. Then the Titans will have a press conference at the facility. And the one thing the Titans could do that would make me very, very, very happy would be to announce to the media that as of right now, going into the 2025 season, they are prepared for Brandon Allen to be the starting quarterback. That we are going to bring Cam Ward along slowly, that we may sit Cam Ward on the bench. And I know you guys are going to say, no, Jared. I know you want the cookies now. I heard the most heinous take out of the mouth of Paul Kaharski yesterday when he said, if he's got to sit right away, he's not the guy. I'm like, excuse me? Do you want to know what Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen all have in common? They're the only league MVP since 2017. You want to know what else they all have in common? They did not start their first game in the National Football League. Not one of them. You mean to tell me Mahomes ain't the guy? Allen's not the guy? Jackson's not the guy? Brady's not the guy? Again, I know you guys want the cookies now. I remember this when we talked about playing Will Levis, and Robbie Stanley said, you got to see what you have in Levis. And I'm thinking, you don't have to see. You talk about you, the team. You, the fans, you want to see what you have in Levis. It's like Mike Borgonzi said in Kansas City. They saw Patrick Mahomes in practice every day. They knew how good he was. But there was a plan, and they were bringing him along slowly, and they stuck to the plan. The rest of the world didn't know. I mean, I remember when Mahomes started out in 2018 and started bombing the ball down the field, and they'd send it to New York for a game break. Here's JB, and we'd see Mahomes throw it 90 yards down the field 6 times. They're like, holy crap, this guy's incredible. They knew that. But again, it takes real vision. It takes the ability to stand up to the fans and say, fans, I know you want him to play right away, but we are going to make sure that we do this correctly. Cam Ward has never played under center. And you're just going to stick him out there and say, you're up, kiddo. You don't do that to a quarterback if they're not ready. Cam Ward played in the ACC. Unlike many of you, on Saturdays, I actually watch ACC football. The ACC is not the SEC. The ACC is not the Big Ten. The ACC is absolutely not the AFC or the NFC. And he only has 1 year of ACC experience under his belt. This isn't one of those situations where just because you're not ready today at 22 years old doesn't mean that you won't ever be good. But I believe in sitting quarterbacks unless they've proven that they are absolutely, positively ready. Bo Nix played in college for 9 years. He was ready last year. But I don't know if everybody else was. And Steve McNair wasn't ready when they drafted him with the 3rd overall pick. Patrick Mahomes wasn't ready when they drafted him with the 10th overall pick. And isn't that who you want this kid to be? When I see the Titan fans that told me for months that they have to take Mahomes, that they have to take Ward. He's the next Mahomes, Jared. He's the next McNair. People on Twitter, Air, H-E-I-R, Air McNair. Well, if he's the next Steve McNair or he's the next Patrick Mahomes, aren't you supposed to do what McNair's coaches and general managers did with him and what, again, Andy Reid did with Mahomes? And that takes me to Brinker and Borgonzi, because they keep acting like every decision they make is what's in the best interest of the Titans, and that it's not to sell tickets, and that it's not to hype up a new stadium, and that it's not to, again, scratch their own itches, but it's to build something special. Draft, develop, retain. Not draft, hype up, and then ruin. If you're going to run this organization and you're going to bring it out of the gutter, run it with authority and be thinking about the long-term plan. Think about the big picture. Because it'd be real easy to draft Cam Ward and hold up the jersey with him tomorrow and everybody's going to be happy and everybody. I guarantee you, the Titans graphic design department already has the billboards ready. They already have the digital ads that you and I are going to get targeted with. They've already got the Cam Ward in the Titans uniform. Get your season tickets to Nissan Stadium today. They've already got it ready to roll. And I'm not saying they shouldn't. That's called marketing. But it would be easy to say, he's going to be our quarterback day one. It would show me real courage and a real plan. Again, it keeps saying, got to have a plan for the quarterback, got to have a plan for the quarterback, got to have a plan for the quarterback. It would show me a real plan. If you stood up to the fans and told them something that I know you all don't want to hear. So, again, when you talk about Jared, tonight, we're so used to you going crazy on the draft show. We can't wait. We can't. Well, it's not the same as when they drafted Peter Skoronski and I just dropped my head and said, a guard with the 11th overall pick. Or last year, it was probably right around this time. I think I was sitting in this exact seat. Robbie Stanley texted me and said, they're going to draft J.C. Latham, aren't they? And it kind of hit me. I was like, oh, my God, they might. And they took Latham. And I threw a massive fit. That's not going to happen today because, again, I already know what they're going to do. I wouldn't draft Cam Ward. But Cam Ward does have real talent. But I'm thinking about what's the best way to get the most out of this talent from this young quarterback. And for me, it would be for the Titans to have a plan that involves doing something that the fans don't want them to do. That, again, happened for Tom Brady, happened for Lamar Jackson, happened for Josh Allen, happened for Patrick Mahomes, happened for Steve McNair, which is we're going to be patient with this kid. We're going to bring him along slowly. That would be something that would make me very, very happy today. That's the move that I want from the Titans that would make me feel confident about them maximizing the potential of this young kid. It's not the end of the world to sit on the bench, especially if you want him to be McNair, if you want him to be Mahomes. Don't you have to do what they did with McNair and what they did with Mahomes? 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. That's 615-737-1025. And then there's the other side of this, which is what is tonight and tomorrow, as far as the Titans are concerned? What is this really about? We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company live out at Twin Peaks on draft night. That's right, Twin Peaks and Madison, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
When we brought in Steve McNair, I said it'll take him a couple of years to learn, the offense, what we're going to do. It'll take him a couple of years to learn the league. Then we'll be ready to go. Then we'll be off and running. And he was lucky enough to have, the same offense, the same type system, many of the same coaches and things like that. So that helped. we told the press that night, we said, now don't come to us every week if we don't win and say, when's McNair going to start? I'm telling you, McNair will not play this year. I said, he'll play a little bit next year, and then we'll go from there. And sure enough, Steve ended up playing like maybe the fourth quarter of a few games and maybe half of a game or whatever.
That was the old man, the late, great Floyd Reese. And again, he said, we took McNair, and I went right to the media. And I said, he will not play for 2 years. Do not come to me when we don't win and say, when is McNair going to play? I know Robbie and Joe get mad when I bring up Bill Polian. I heard Bill Polian say a couple weeks ago that he went to that if he were the Bears when they drafted Justin Fields, that he would have gone to the press and said, you're going to see him in the preseason. He's going to light it up. And then you are not going to see him again this year. And instead, what happened was they signed Andy Dalton. They lost some games. Everyone says, Andy Dalton sucks. Put in Fields. And they put in Fields before he was ready. Do not ruin this kid. So tonight, if I were the Titans, I'd take him and I'd go to the podium and I'd give you the impression. Now, I wouldn't say, hey, he's not going to play for 2 years like McNair. I'm not going to say he's not going to play this year, because maybe he gets to camp and he adjusts under center and he's ready to go. And then you as a coaching staff and as an executive team decide, you know what? He's ready. Let's put him out there. If that's the case, okay. But I would give everybody the impression that Brandon Allen's going to be the starting quarterback of the Titans. And I know Brandon Allen stinks. I don't care. The decision to sit Cam Ward is not about 2025. The decision to play Brandon Allen is not about 2025. And this would have been a lot easier if they had signed a Daniel Jones, or if they had signed a Mac Jones, or if they had signed somebody who's actually started before in the NFL, but they didn't. It's Brandon Allen. But the decision here to bring Cam Ward along slowly, which again is what I would do. This is about 2027. This is about 2029. This is about 2030 and beyond. It is not about this upcoming season. And again, I'll keep pushing back because you all keep saying you want Mahomes, you want McNair, take him, Jared, you got to take him, you got to. But if you want McNair and you want Mahomes, talking about you people, you need to be willing to do what those general managers and what those coaches were willing to do. And they were willing to sit the guy, even though everybody wanted him to play right away. I will never forget the Skip Bayless, Shannon Sharp show. And boy, Shannon Sharp's career has taken a turn for the worse. But the Skip Bayless, Shannon Sharp show, the day after the 2017 draft. And they asked the question, who's going to be the best quarterback, Trubisky, Watson, or Mahomes? And Chris Carter, the Hall of Fame wide receiver, said, if you're so good, why do you have to sit the bench? Talking about Mahomes. Again, I think it was a good idea. I think it was a very good idea. Quarterback's a hard position to learn. Isn't every job difficult when you first get thrust into it? Cam Ward's coming from 1 year at Miami, and you're just going to throw him in there? No. Again, he's got a lot to learn. I was reading what Pelissero wrote when he talked to all those different league executives about Cam Ward, and because the Titans are going to take Cam Ward, and because the Titans aren't a sexy team, people really focused on what they said about Shador Sanders. But when they talked about Cam Ward, they talked about the arm angles and the ability to throw sidearm and different crazy throws and all that kind of stuff. It's eerily similar to Mahomes. Well, let's develop them like you develop Mahomes. An NFC scouting director, quote, Cam has a chance to be really good, especially because the person is super competitive. He's going to make some mistakes. He's going to turn it over a ton, but I think part of that will be him pushing his limits, which is a sign of confidence. One AFC quarterbacks coach, Cam is the most talented, but he scares me a lot. He's got a long ways to go before he's refined as a passer, and I see a lot of misses, especially outside the numbers. Caleb Williams is a much better passer. He was much more polished and still had a very rough first year as a quarterback. I see athleticism. I see the off-the-schedule plays, but I don't see him doing much in the pocket that he's going to need to do. Again, that's why you let him learn. Let Bo Hardegree, the quarterback's coach, work with him. Let him practice against NFL players. Let him do all of those things. Preseason games, let him play. And then when he's ready, put him out there. And again, if I was the general manager, I wouldn't go down there today and say, hey, he's not going to play this year, or, oh, Brandon Allen's for sure. I'd say, we're going to bring him along slowly. And if that means Brandon Allen's our quarterback this year, that means Brandon Allen's our quarterback this year. That's fine. That's what I would say. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Ellie is going to kick us off this hour. Ellie, thank you for calling and thank you for waiting. You go ahead.
No, I agree 100% with you that they should sit him for a year. The one encouraging thing is that he's improved every year. And with a year of learning the system, he could do really well. But I think it's imperative to surround him with some other playmakers. You know, if you could get Mark Andrews for a fifth-round pick, get Mark Andrews. If you get Trevion Henderson or Luther Burden in the second round, get them. Set him up for success, because if you really want to set him up right for the future, do it now because you have the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. So here's what I would say when it comes to, go get him a running back, get him a receiver, getting him a defense. That helps the young quarterback. Again, we judge these guys by winning and losing. Whether it's right or wrong, we judge them by winning or losing. Caleb Williams had an awful season, right? Go look at Caleb's stats. They weren't that bad. Jaden Daniels had an amazing season. Now, Jaden's stats were good, but Jaden also ended up in the NFC title game. It's winning and losing. And when you've got a defense, what you then ask Cam Ward to do when he gets out there, what you ask him to do is go score us 17 points. Go score us 20 points. We don't need you to score 28. We don't need you to be Joe Burrow and go out there with those receivers and outscore everybody. So I would not view a defense as hurting Cam Ward by not getting him a receiver, or not getting him a running back, or not getting him. I actually would view getting him a defense as a good thing. That would be right atop the list. Hey, let's make this defense the best we can be. And this is another thing, because, and the Titans alluded to this, they won't come out and say we're going to suck this season because everybody's going to try. But they alluded to all the holes and being patient and doing this the right way and everything else. Well, the way I would view it is, I'm going to draft the best player available tomorrow, make the trade or the situation that's best for the team. I'm going to do that tomorrow in round 2. But I would really think about, okay, how do we build a nasty defense? Because the defense sucks. And I would say, okay, how do we build a nasty defense, especially for 2026, so that when Cam gets in there for sure, he can run the ball, they can play defense, and I can take pressure off of them. That's what I would be asking for. All right, more of your phone, 615-737-1025. Again, I know they're going to take Cam Ward. I'm not for it, but it is what it is. But they can make me a very happy camper by saying tonight, hey, we're going to bring him along slowly. And that might mean Brandon Allen starting at quarterback. We'll give you your phones next. 615-737-1025 at Stillman & Company on 1025 and 1063 The Game.
I think one of the things unique to my journey in this profession is I've done it before too. I've been a part of a young quarterback, number one overall pick, coming into a team that picked number one for a reason. And we weren't good enough last year, so we're picking first, and we have a chance to add a really good player with the first overall pick, whatever it ends up being. But there is a lot of things that I learned from that first lesson of when you bring in a player like that, that'll help us in the process.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan talking about, hey, I've been a part of this. I've developed a young quarterback. Trust me, I've been a part of this. Yeah. Not exactly the same as getting Joe Burrow. I think I could have coached Joe Burrow. Ed Orgeron coached Joe Burrow and won a national title. And so let's be careful of, we're going to just, Brian Callahan, he knows. So Titans Twitter is mad. So I looked at it during the break, and Twitter's like, why would you sit him on the bench? Why would you do this? Why would you sit the best quarterback on the team on the bench? Why would you put Brandon Allen out there? Why would you do this? Why would you? Because he hasn't taken a snap under center in his entire life? Am I the only one that thinks, I don't know, that might be a good idea? That might be a... So Titans Twitter has spoken. They have decided that Cam Ward should absolutely, positively start day one. There should be no questions about it. There should be. So, again, you all keep saying he's the next McNair or he's the next Mahomes. When I then present a plan that is representative of the plans that those teams had for McNair and had for Mahomes, you start complaining to me about Brandon Allen. Why do we care so much about what happens in 2025? I mean, I was told I'm not allowed to have Jalen Ramsey on defense because this team's not a corner away from winning the Super Bowl. So why not do what's in the best interest of the young guy to develop him to be successful, as opposed to just, again, scratching the itch you have to watch Cam Ward play on Sundays in the fall? This league ruins far too many quarterbacks. Don't do what everybody else does, or else you'll get everybody else's results. Unless you all think that Cam Ward is just so special, and nobody out there is saying this. Again, they talk to all these executives and all these scouts and all these people, and they all say, yeah, he would have been after Bo Nix last year. Yeah, he's got talent, but yeah, he's not Peyton Manning. He's not even Jared Goff. They keep telling you this. They say, hey, there's talent there, but, and you people just do not listen to it. You've just decided, nope. He's going to be Mahomes on day one with a head coach who's got a career record of 3-14 with no tight end, with a crappy defense. You're going to stick him out there, and he's going to be McNair, even though you don't want to do what McNair did. Got it. One texter into the text line says, I totally agree that Ward needs to sit. That's how you develop a franchise quarterback. But Brandon Allen, surely someone is still out there the Titans can bring in. The big difference between developing Mahomes and developing Ward is that one was developed by a Hall of Fame coach. Ward will be developed by Brian Callahan. So I can't help you if this coach is no good. Like, I can't help you. Nobody can help you. If this coach is no good and he can't develop a quarterback, then you need to fire him. In fact, he was hired because the expectation was he could develop young quarterbacks. He already failed with the one he signed up to coach. If we have to look at this, because I said this when it came to the Titans signing Sam Darnold. And I say, hey, if in Kansas City they solidified the position with Alex Smith, and then they built their team, and then they went out and got Mahomes because they didn't force it at quarterback. If that's the case, why not do that with Sam Darnold? And I was told, well, that's different because Alex Smith had Andy Reid. Okay, well, if my coach isn't good enough to compete with the other coaches, then fire him and go get another coach. To me, it's that simple. We did this when we talked about Vrabel developing a quarterback, and you say, I have no faith in the Titans developing a quarterback. Then fire Vrabel and go get a coach who develops quarterbacks. So I get it that it's like, hey, he's got Brian Callahan. Well, guess what? If Brian Callahan sucks that bad, he's not going to develop and you're going to fail. I cannot help you at that point. One texter into the text line says, what percent? People are asking, like, oh, they should trade back. Oh, they should take Hunter. I do wonder, do some of you people live under a rock? Because one texter says, what percentage do you put on the Titans being able to get Travis Hunter? Less than 10%? Less than 0.0000001%. They're drafting Cam Ward. Knock on wood. The only thing that could probably keep them from drafting Cam Ward right now is if Cam Ward were to, before he walks up to the podium, because once they turn the card in, they turn the card in. If Cam Ward walking the red carpet at the NFL draft were to turn around and slug somebody in the face, or were to walk in with a Nazi armband and give the salute, like, that's the only thing at this point that would keep them from drafting Cam Ward. I don't know. Like, when people sit there and they say, like, hey, is there any chance that we can trade back and draft? No, they told you they're drafting Ward. They've told you it's done. So no, if you think you're going to turn on the TV today and say, all right, let's see who they take, you have not been paying attention. One texter says, don't forget that Alex Smith was a Pro Bowl quarterback when Mahomes was drafted on top of the coach. Okay? So because Alex Smith was a Pro Bowl quarterback, that allowed Mahomes to develop into Mahomes? Or you're saying it gave their fans something to watch on TV while they waited for Mahomes to be their starting quarterback? This is what you're asking me. You're telling me I want to see Cam Ward start day one because even though it may not be in his best interest, it's more entertaining to watch on September 8th Cam Ward play quarterback than it is to watch Brandon Allen. I don't care about September 8th. You're not going to be any good this year anyway. September 8th doesn't matter. But if you ruin the quarterback, then 3 years from now, we'll be in the exact same spot having the exact same discussions. But, I mean, we don't have Andy Reid and we don't have – so you have to have the best coach? You have to have the best coach. You have to have the best starting coach. You have to have the best this. You have to have the best. Everybody's telling you Cam Ward as a prospect is not Caleb Williams, is not Joe Burrow, is not Trevor Lawrence, is not those high-end talented guys. And you're fine with picking him, but you hate the coach and you don't want to spend any time developing him. Who does this make sense to? Justin says, if they are going to pick Ward, then this Titan fan would be overjoyed if they came out and said they're sitting him. That might go a long way to rebuilding trust that they actually have a plan and they actually know what they're doing. Yes. One texter says, you can't stand when people don't agree with your opinion. We have to hear you beating the dead horse for the next 2 weeks. I agree Ward is not a traditional number one. However, it all stems down to you being right. I was right. I was right. No, I don't care about that. I want to be wrong. I am a Titans fan. I root for the Tennessee Titans. You know, other people that do this, they don't root for the Titans. They're like, that's your football team, not my football team. I root for the Titans. I want the Titans to win. I am tired. This picking number one, it sucks. Especially because the draft night's usually fun watching the picks fly off the board. Okay, well, what about this guy? Well, we don't have that. We know who they're going to pick. But again, I'm not worried about being right. I'm worried about the Titans, if they're going to do this, getting it right. And you guys keep telling me he's Mahomes and he's McNair, but then you are telling me that you don't want to do the things that Mahomes had to do or the things that McNair had to do because you want it all right now. And I'm just telling you, that is illogical. That is completely insane. It's like Robbie Stanley texting me being like, this owner is not going to put up with him sitting on the bench and Brandon Allen. And okay, so the owner keeps the coach who's no good, supposedly, The owner keeps the coach who's no good. So, well, we can't expect him to develop the quarterback because he sucks. The owner approves them drafting the quarterback, but the owner then wouldn't allow you to develop the quarterback? Then you have no chance of ever being good. I mean, it's like when I do this stuff and people are like, well, Jared, what if this guy goes down, this guy and this and that? I'm like, then you lose. If your owner is too impatient to bring along the young quarterback, if your owner won't let you hire a coach who can develop a young quarterback, if all of this is in the way, then you're going to ruin the kid. You're going to suck, and we'll be here 3 years from now hoping that the next guy can be the great savior of the team. Again, in my lifetime, 2 quarterbacks taken number 1 overall have saved bad franchises with the team that drafted them. Peyton Manning and Joe Burrow. So you've got to hope that either your organization has pulled its head out of its ass or that he's Peyton Manning and he's Joe Burrow. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. More of your phones. We will get to those coming up next here on the program. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025, 1025 and 1063 the game. And let me tell all the fine folks out there, as we got a lot going on around here. Let me tell them that it's time for the 4th annual 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament. Cromwell Media, along with partners Fox 17, Outfront Media, and Social Indoor are proud to announce that we'll be back at Hermitage Golf Course on Thursday, May 29th to make a difference while having a great time. You can join us and a few guest media members, athletes, and musicians as we raise money for Folds of Honor. Donations will go to provide life-changing scholarships to family of America's fallen or disabled military and first responders. Sign up to play or sponsor at 615open.com.
in a year where there are no Peyton Mannings, you know, there are no, not even in Jared Goff's, for example. You're saying, well, okay, everybody said, I'm not sure I want to draft a quarterback in the top 5. Maybe you do because you have a grade on whoever the top guy is, and the next guy after that, I don't think anybody's getting drafted in the top 5. So there's a little leavening taking place, but the position is so important that you can, as a GM, you can justify in your mind going up and taking him. We better take him here. We have a conviction on him. If we don't take him here, we're not going to get him. So that's the way people look at it.
That was Bill Polian, the former NFL general manager. Again, a Hall of Famer, drafted quarterbacks who started Super Bowls. Peyton Manning started a Super Bowl. Jim Kelly started 4 Super Bowls. And Kerry Collins even started a Super Bowl. One texter says, cheer up, man. We are getting a new quarterback who is good and has played a ton of football, and it's been bad around here a long time. Don't start defeated. So again, hey, we're getting a good quarterback, Jared. Really? Because the guy that's in the Hall of Fame for doing this, not you, but the guy that's in the Hall of Fame said he's not even Jared Goff. So I agree. Cam Ward has talent. I watched the Cam Ward tape. He's a first-round pick. But at the same time, you're going to have to be patient. And at the same time, you're going to have to develop him. And at the same time, this just assuming he's our guy and on we go, that's not going to work. I watched the city of Chicago go all in thinking that Caleb Williams was going to show up day one and be a superstar. And we saw how that played out. Caleb Williams was awful in that first game against the Titans. And I remember after Will Levis just gave the game to the Bears, they interviewed Caleb on the field. I'm like, why are they interviewing him? He didn't do anything. But that, again, they thought they were getting a franchise guy from the very, very, very beginning. Boy, it would have been a meltdown in Chicago if the Titans had won that game. And if they hadn't gotten a punt blocked, they would have. One texter says, you say you don't care about being right, but that's complete BS. If you didn't care, then you wouldn't bring up 10 times every show. I've said it 100 times. Give it a rest, Jared. And do us a favor. So instead of telling you for years, again, it's been bad. And I have pushed back against stupid things I've seen because I don't want the Titans to do them. Sometimes I think that the Titans do the opposite of what I say on purpose. They're like, oh, well, Jared Stillman said it. He must be wrong. So let's do the opposite. But I've pushed back against the stupid. And time again, I've been told by people high up there, coaches, everybody, you don't understand. Well, you do know you're picking number 1 tonight because you're so bad, right? That's not a victory of saying, I was right. That is I was right about that. Maybe I'm right about this. Again, I was the peeing in everybody's cereal all offseason last year. And I was a hater, and Rand was going to cook, and I was going to have to eat my words, and I was going to apologize. And then by week 3, PT's getting just whipped by the Green Bay Packers, and Malik Willis is lighting you up. By week 3, you knew, yeah, that's not going to happen here. One texter in the text line said, if Levis did well last year, but they still only won 3 games, would they be drafting Ward? I have no idea. I can't worry about things that didn't happen. I'm worried about the future here. Levis was awful last year. The team did really nothing other than getting him a receiver to support him. And I don't think a lot of quarterbacks would have succeeded in that situation, but Levis didn't do himself any favors either. And I do not like Levis's makeup as far as becoming a franchise quarterback. I do like Ward's makeup. One texter says, you always say the fans want Cam, but I don't know one that wants him. Go read the text line. Will on Music Row says, Jared, I just read a story from the New York Post that the Giants are still trying to trade up. I really hope that we can still trade the pick. What are the chances Joe Shane gets desperate and offers something historic? They already said, don't call. They've already said it. We're taking Cam Ward. Don't call. Like, it's done. Stop. Again, I love drama too. And I love holding on until the very last second and let's see and let's. But the hay's in the barn here. That's it. One text says, hypothetically, pretend that Amy guaranteed Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan that she would give them a 3-year runway to build a Super Bowl team, and none of those guys were afraid of being fired after the season. Do you still think they would draft Cam Ward at number 1? I wonder if the reason they're drafting Cam Ward at number 1 is because they don't have the money. Like, it's like, hey, it's going to cost $30 million to draft somebody number 1. If we sign Sam Darnold for $40 million, and then we draft Abdul Carter, that's $30 million, that's $70 million. So let's just draft Cam for $30 million and sign Draymond Jones for 10. That's what I wonder more than anything else when it comes to Amy. One text says, how can everyone assume Ward is a great quarterback when he hasn't played a snap in the NFL yet? Dozens of great college quarterbacks don't even make it in the NFL. They can assume Ward is a great quarterback because they want to. That's why. TD is up next. What is TD hearing about the Titans' plans for Cam Ward and his reaction to the news of the day, the Titans signing Tyler Lockett? We'll do the TD Power Hour, and we'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. We are live at Twin Peaks out here in Madison again for draft night in Nashville, which begins at 6 o'clock. Chris, Derek, Trevor, we will all be here breaking down round one of the draft tonight. Meanwhile, at Titans headquarters, Teron Davenport, ESPN, joins us for the TD Power Hour. TD, happy draft day to you.
Hey, man, this is heaven on earth right here. Happy draft day to you and everyone listening, and let's go, man.
Okay, so let's start with this. We already know the drama that we would normally be talking about. Oh, if the Chargers go with this guy and then the Steelers go with this guy, then what's it? That's over. We know who the Titans are taking. They're taking Cam Ward, number one. They made it obvious the other day. I ask you this. What is the plan for Ward? Not like how is he going to get to town and all of that, but to build a winner around him and to develop him the right way so that 3 years from now, TD, we're not having the exact same discussion.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because that's actually the base of the story that I had posted earlier this week, to not have a repeat of the past things that have happened with quarterbacks selected in the top 10. And I think the first thing from the people that I talk to is to create stability. And it's funny that that's kind of the first thing, because it's like, okay, well, this is an organization that in 3 consecutive years has fired a GM, head coach, and then GM. And now you got a head coach on the hot seat. So it's really going to be intriguing to see it play out. But that's one thing. And then obviously building around him. And I think what Mike Borgonzi has started to do, just as far as like stack that offensive line, is really an example. And then last night they signed Tyler Lockett. So that's just another example of just trying to get the pieces in place to be able to make sure that it is successful. They are preaching patience, but I think, this go round with this team that they have in place, especially being as though Brian Callahan has seen it happen before. Because when I asked him why this is going to work this time, as opposed to it not working with other groups, and that's the first thing he said, I've been through this before. And I think when you look at his perspective, having been through it and with a quarterback that played right away, and I know you hate that concept, but it is something that can work. Then you look at Borgonzi's perspective, Mike Borgonzi, and he's been in a situation where it was like, okay, you get a guy to be there to bridge it, and then you bring him in afterward as far as making him the starter, and it worked that way too. So they kind of got the best of both worlds. So I think that's what they're banking on, that previous experience.
What do you think they're going to say today when asked about Ward starting right away? Because you're right, Brinker comes from Green Bay, where they over marinate these guys on the bench. Then there's Borgonzi in Kansas City, where they sat Mahomes on the bench, and he said it was hard watching Mahomes in practice and saying, hey, let's keep this Maserati in the garage for right now, but that's the plan. And then Callahan, who again his experience was go stick Joe Burrow out there. What do you think they'll say today when they're asked about Cam Ward and will he be the day one starter?
Well, I think when I asked them about that, they're going to say, as far as like both of their experiences, they're going to say everything is situational. And I think, when they're asked about playing Cam right away, they're going to say, look, there's a plan, but we still have to get him in the building and all of that. That's going to be the answer, right? They're going to want to see what they have, get their hands on it and see what they have before they make a decision that he's going to play right away. I'll be shocked if they say that.
Yeah, if they just get up there and say, oh, yeah, Cam Ward, he's ready to play right away, we're going to stick him out there. Their actions look like they're going to stick him out there, but usually teams like to kind of leave a little crack in there of like, hey, we'll do whatever we think is in the best interest. Where do you think Cam needs to improve before he's truly ready? Because I was reading what Tom Pelissero wrote at NFL.com, where he talked to all those different scouts and people, and everyone made a big deal about the Shador Sanders stuff. But there's a lot of juicy stuff in there about Cam with these guys saying he's got talent and he's the best player in this class as far as quarterback's concerned. But there still needs to be some work where he needs to refine his game here, and he needs to spend more time under center there, and he's careless sometimes with the football. So when it comes to where Cam Ward sits today, TD, where do you think, okay, this needs to improve a little bit?
It's funny that careless with the football thing comes into play and is mentioned. The man threw 7 interceptions last year. That's pretty good, if you ask me, and a 65, I think it was, percent completion percentage. But I would say this: if there's something that he needs to improve upon, and it was coming up in some of the games. Like I watched the Cal game again today. I watched Virginia Tech again. And, the guy likes to, at times, and it's a gift and a curse, right? He's so blessed arm wise that he's able to roll to his right and throw across his body down the field to the left and complete the pass. But then there are other times where there's decisions that he makes in trying to do that, and it ends up being detrimental. And Brian Callahan kind of touched on that when he said, like, there's a gift that a guy has, and sometimes they'll be running and you say, like, throw it out of bounds, and you're telling them, hey, throw it out of bounds, throw it out of bounds. He doesn't, and it's a really big time play, and you're like, oh, okay, and you're trying to balance it. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing. Brian Callahan, Nick Holtz, Bo Hardegree, just trying to be able to balance that out, but also not take it away, that playmaking ability.
TD, have you been surprised? I mean, I know you work for ESPN and you cover the Titans for ESPN, but have you been surprised? It's almost as soon as the Titans made it obvious they were going to take Cam Ward, the attention has kind of moved off of Cam Ward as far as the draft is concerned. And I strongly believe that if it were the New York Jets picking at number 1 and they were going to take Cam Ward, it wouldn't be that way. If the Giants had traded up to number 1 for Cam Ward, I highly doubt it would be that way. So I wonder, do you think that Cam is kind of flying under the radar as far as number 1 picks are concerned?
I would say yes to an extent. I mean, look, I did one TV appearance this whole draft season, and that was the mock draft. Last year we saw Courtney Cronin, our Bears reporter. She was all over the place. I know she's much more beautiful than me, but besides the point, and she's very talented, by the way. Let's make sure that's clear. But yeah, I think the league, there is less attention that's given to the Tennessee Titans. It's a fact, but that's because this is a team that hasn't been very exciting for too long, but is also a much smaller market than your New York, your Chicago, Philly, etc., Dallas, whatever. So I think it's kind of a twofold thing, and I know Titans fans hate it, but hey, one way to make them have to pay attention to you is if this guy Cam Ward can help them become relevant again, and it be quarterback driven as opposed to running back driven like it was before.
Diddy, if you were the coach and you got Cam Ward on the field and you saw maybe he was struggling under center because he didn't spend a ton of time doing it in college, or you saw, maybe he just needs a little time. And I'm not saying the whole season, because Lamar didn't sit the whole season and Josh Allen sat one game and then they stuck him out there. If you saw some of that, would you hesitate to start Brandon Allen, given the fact that Brandon Allen is certainly not an NFL-capable starter, but because you'd be thinking about 26 and 27 and 28 and all the way to 35, would you hesitate to play Brandon Allen if you felt it was in the best interest of Cam Ward?
Yes, if I decide to pull him out there and to roll him out there, I'm rolling with him, and period. And you know what? We're just going to fight through the hiccups together, and we're going to swim through the choppy water together, and hopefully come out on the other side and still be together, because we know, the pressure's on for Brian Callahan to win. So that's going to be something else he has to balance, sorting through the developmental process. And if that developmental process has warts that lead to games being lost, finding that balance is definitely going to be strong. But I think that's also why you have a guy like Brandon Allen back there, because it's like, okay, you turn to Brandon Allen, you're not going to get a Nick Foles type of run through the playoffs. You know what I mean? So you do want to make sure that you balance it out.
How would you compare just coming out? Because a lot of people, even though everyone says, hey, this draft is different than other drafts, and the quarterbacks in this draft, no disrespect, they're not Jaden Daniels, and they're not going to be Jaden Daniels, and they're not going to be CJ Stroud right away. How would you compare Cam to Jaden Daniels? Because I think there are a lot of Titan fans that even if you tell them, hey, he's not Jaden Daniels, it's going to take longer for him to get there, that deep down inside, they'll hear you, but they won't hear you, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So you're saying, how would I compare the two? I mean, look, Jaden Daniels is a better quarterback. There's no getting around it. He's a better quarterback, and he was a better prospect. And if he was in this draft this year, he would be the pick. He would be the guy we were talking about, not Cam Ward. I don't think there's any getting around that. And I mean, if you're just comparing prospects, they both seem to have the good thing that both of them have is extensive college experience. They've had success to an extent at multiple programs. And then also the other thing that you have to look at is both of these guys seem to be unwaverable, where it's always the same personality regardless of the situation. And that's something, talking to Xavier Restrepo, Elijah Arroyo, Sam Brown, talking to those guys, that's one thing they said, man, like no matter what the situation was, Cam was the same. And that's how you have to be. And that's, of course, how Jaden Daniels, we know the stories of how he was, in the Commanders' years. So I would say those are the similarities. I think Jaden Daniels is just a better runner of the football. I think he's a better down the field thrower. And he's an overall better player. But that's not to say that Cam isn't good, because, frankly, as I've said before, Cam and Shador, like I take them over all quarterbacks last year, with the exception of Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams. And then even if you sit down and you watch Caleb Williams and Cam together, I don't think there's much separation as far as one being better than the other. And there's an argument that could be made for both.
Yeah. I do wonder, too, when it comes to these quarterbacks and them coming out and everything else, I do wonder as far as where the Titans sit with Cam. I do wonder, okay, how are they going to get the defense better, given that, if he goes out there day one, fans are going to want to still win those games, and they're still going to want and to go through those bumps. Josh Allen had the second best defense in the league, and he was throwing for 80 yards and beating the Titans because the Titans turned it over a bunch with that great defense. I do wonder how much the Titans value defense, especially the rest of the weekend, when it comes to putting Cam Ward in a situation to be successful.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. From a Titans perspective, that 35 is really interesting. So I was talking with an agent today, and he
TD, hold that
represents.
thought. Let's hit 35 on the other side. TD
All right,
is
cool.
with us for the TD Power Hour. So we will get right to TD's thoughts on 35, because I will say one is spoken for. But TD say talk to an agent today. I want to hear where that conversation goes. In fact, I'm writing that down so I don't forget. TD Power Hour, TD's with us, Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
you want to surround the young quarterback with as much, talent and have the environment for him to succeed. But at the same time, we're building a team here too as well. So, we have to do what's best for the team at that point. Of course, we'd like to go out and give that player everything he needs. But our thinking is right now there's a lot of holes in this roster, and we have to make the best decision for the team in terms of value of that player.
There you go. That was Mike Borgonzi, TD Power Hour. Teron Davenport with us. I'm live out at Twin Peaks here in Madison, where the draft show starts at 6 o'clock. TD's at the Titans facility. Okay, TD, the 35th pick, you were talking to an agent. Take it away.
Yeah, so you had asked me about the defense part of it and how the Titans could address that. And I think when you look at the 35th pick, especially with them having signed Tyler Lockett, I know Lockett is not a world breaker or anything like that as a prospect. But what it does do, or as a veteran acquisition rather, but what it does do is it kind of pushes the receiver need down a little bit as opposed to the need for an edge rusher. So I was talking to an agent who represents one of the edge rushers in the draft, and he was like, there's 3 or 4 teams, that I've been talking to at the bottom, and they're saying that at the bottom of the first round, and they're saying that, hey, your guy could very well go. And so I was like, that's very interesting, because I don't know if you saw the Titans, they signed Tyler Lockett, and now at 35, you look at guys like Landon Jackson and some of these others, they could get pushed up and end up going at 35, and that may push another team to take your guy earlier. And that's really the case that we're seeing right now. Tyler Shuck, Jackson Dart, those are guys that may end up, being there at the top of the second round, and teams will trade into there, or if they trade into the bottom of the first, one way or another, between the defensive ends, like the edge rushers, the group of them that so many, and the quarterbacks, Shuck and Dart, I think it really makes it even more intriguing at 35. And I'm telling you, I'm going to be at the edge of my chair wondering what happens, regardless of whether they trade or not. But don't be surprised if you see a little run on edge rushers at the bottom of the first round and into the top of the second.
TD, do you think Tyler Lockett takes them out of the mix for Luther Burden III?
No, not at all. I think Luther Burden, Lockett could play inside or outside. Luther Burden could do the same thing. And look, man, if I got a group on the field first that has Calvin Ridley, Luther Burden, and Tyler Lockett, I like that group. And if I'm Brian Callahan, I'm looking at that like, hey, you know what? I got guys that could play X, slot, and Z all in one, and we could just move them around wherever, and I could call plays for each of them in creating matchups. If I want, Ridley against their nickel corner, I'll just bump him inside, boom, boom. Vice versa with Luther Burden. I think that's a good thing, having 3 guys that can play inside and outside the way they can.
TD, when it comes to the edge rushers, I pulled up Peter Schrager's mock draft, your colleague at ESPN now, Daniel Jeremiah, Dane Brugler, and I'm like, okay, so who, is going to be available? And in only one of those did James Pierce Jr. go off the board. In, I believe, Daniel Jeremiah did not even have Mike Green going off the board out of Marshall. So I do wonder, when we talk edge rushers, you bring up Landon Jackson, but there's some of these names between Donovan Ezeraku or James Pierce or Mike Green that maybe if they end up getting pushed down at 35, how do you kind of break out those guys as compared to, again, the guys that seem more certain to be there around the 35th pick?
Yeah, well, I think James Pierce, I highly doubt he's there. I would be surprised if these teams that are picking at the bottom of the first round, I would be shocked if none of them signed him, drafted him rather, and allowed him to drop into the second. So to me, I believe he's a first round pick. Mike Green, I think he is another one you have to put in the mix. I know there are some teams that are just like, I'm not using the first on him because of some background stuff. Mm-hmm. So it just depends on the organization, right? And I think, and it depends not only on that organization, but their interviews. And I thought Mike Borgonzi on Tuesday and also at the Combine, when I asked him about it, he said it perfectly. He said, you have to determine, okay, Is this a good person that made a mistake? And what have they learned from that mistake? And I think that's really the main thing. So it's going to depend on guys like Mike Green. And then, apparently no one has been able to, has come forth with it. But supposedly there's character stuff with James Pierce Jr. I'm not going to say there is. I'm just saying supposedly, and no one has come out with what it is. But there's supposed to be something there. I don't know, but I really would find it hard to believe that either of them would drop.
I hate doing that, and I'm not, it's part of the job is to discuss, he might drop because these teams that have done this research that are not telling us what it is, see character concerns. I just hate the gossip about the kids being like, James Pierce might be a bad kid. What do we know about? Nothing. I mean, like we have no idea. We don't have security teams that are looking into it. We don't have area scouts that have been following him for 3 years. We don't have but it is kind of part of the job there when it comes to those kids. I do wonder, too, when it comes to the 35th pick, in a perfect world, the Titans view the board and say, we can trade down to 44. We can trade down to 35 or 38. We can trade down and pick up a pick tomorrow. I do wonder, TD, do you think the Titans are making those calls right now, or do you think that discussion starts tomorrow in the overnight after round?
No, I think a lot of the foundations of those discussions are starting right now. Like, hey, look, this is how we're looking at it. If our guy is there, at the top of the second, we would definitely be interested. But it only depends on if our guy is there. And what we're looking at is there's probably going to be a run on this position. So if our guy's there, then they'll have a trade. You know what I mean? Those type of, if this happens, then we'll do that. Those types.
TD, there's one player in particular that I just absolutely love in this draft who might be available at 35. I don't think he will be, but he might be, and that's Donovan Jackson, the guard tackle out of Ohio State. He played half the year at guard and was great at Ohio State, played the other half of the year at tackle and was great at Ohio State. I feel like you can never have enough quality offensive linemen. I think he's either a guard or a tackle and can play them both in the NFL, but the Titans don't have an immediate need there. Would it be crazy if he's the best player on the board to take him because of what he could be as either a guard or a tackle and be thinking bigger picture than just, we need an edge rusher, we need a receiver, we need something else?
All right, so let's get to the bottom of this best player on the board thing, because it seems like a lot of people are misconstruing it and taking it literally. Here's the thing, right? Obviously, if Donovan Jackson is rated higher than the best receiver on the board at that time, if you just go pure best player available, pure, then you go Donovan Jackson. But you also want to go best player available versus value versus need.
Sure.
Right. And so let's say, I don't know, give me a guy. Let's say Kyle Williams is there. Right.
Okay.
And Kyle Williams, Donovan Jackson, they're two different, two different ranking. Williams is probably just below Jackson. And I would say like he's a top 10 receiver. I would say Jackson is a top 3, top 5, guard, etc. You say, okay, is the 7th best receiver a better prospect for us than the 5th best guard? Yeah, he is. And so you take the receiver. You see what I mean? So there's levels to the best player available. Now there are some times where, like the Packers, when Aaron Rodgers was on the board at 20, like, hey man, like we need this, that, and the third. But good, that's Aaron Rodgers. Like we're just gonna take him and figure it out, and that happens. You know what I mean? But for the most part, that's how teams look at their board horizontally, and sometimes it goes like this as far as where you're ranking guys, and you take that guy that's here as opposed to the guy that's there.
TD is with us for the TD Power Hour. How about the rest of round 1 tonight? How does TD see that shaking out? We'll hit that next. Plus, we'll hit your phones at the end of the hour, as we always do. 615-737-1025. We continue. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home. In fact, they take care of all of my homes. If I ever have an issue, we're sending Hiller right out there. They are the best. Nobody wants to deal with a plumbing, HVAC, or electrical emergency. And most of the time, you do not know when you have one of those what it will cost, if it will get fixed correctly, or if someone is just trying to sell you something you do not need. When you call Hiller, their experts are going to solve your problems quickly. And again, I know this because I use Hiller at my home. That's right. If the price you're told is the price that you will actually pay with no hidden fees, no surprises, and nothing else cooked up on your bill. So book online now by visiting happyhiller.com. That's happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of Draft Night in Nashville tonight and the Predators, Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today.
Stephen A., what's your reaction to Sanders now being projected to fall to pick 29?
I'm appalled by it. I really don't like it at all, because I think that you can't tell me, guys. Listen, I'm going to look forward to watching y'all throughout the day talk about the NFL. You know how I feel about you guys. You know that I feel that no matter what I think I know, I learn more from you guys every single day because y'all all played in the NFL, and I'm proud to talk about the job that you do exceptionally covering the league the way that you do. I'm just an outsider that's covered sports for over 30 years. And I don't like the fact that I'm looking at a guy that has gone from speculation about being the number 1 overall pick between him and Cam Ward to being maybe the number 3 pick to the New York Giants, to being the number 6 pick of the Las Vegas Raiders, to being number 9 for the New Orleans Saints, to dropping down to 21 at the Pittsburgh Steelers, to going in the mock drafts where he's going to be 29th, whether it's Mel Kiper Jr. or somebody else saying it. Okay, not that he deserves it, but they're saying that's what's projected. I'm trying to figure out what the hell is this precipitous drop all about? That's my problem.
That was Stephen A. Smith earlier today. TD is with us for the TD Power Hour. TD, the odds are starting to fall on Shador Sanders, even going in the first round tonight. What do we make of all the drama and gossip? We'll do some first round talk here, but what do we think of the talk about Shador Sanders falling? And is that actually good for the Titans if Shador Sanders falls out of round 1 and perhaps one of those two teams, the Browns or the Giants, take him up before they can pick at 35?
Yeah, I tell you what, don't be surprised if the Browns trade back into the first to take him earlier than the top of the second if he should happen to fall. I think when you look at this, obviously, there's a lot that could be put on both sides. The sides like myself who feel like the guy is just unfairly over-critiqued and believe that there's just flat out lies being put out there for him. But then you have the other side who are putting the lies out and believe that he's, getting all the hype just because he's Deion's son. I frankly feel, and I experienced
TV
right over
prospect.
here in the meet. What?
I said TV prospect.
Yeah, I mean, whatever that should mean. But I mean, I experienced it right here in the media room discussing him as a prospect. And I've said, hey, tell me legitimately why you don't think he's good. And I had people actually tell me, hey, well, his dad took a credential away from. What the hell does that have to do with what he does what Shador does on the field? So the problem is there's no balance, right? That there's not a lot of balance. I'm very fond of Shador. There's a lot about his game that I like. But also, when I talk about Shador and compare him to Cam, I say, hey, look, man, there's a difference because Cam is going to be able to, what he's projected, and he looks like he'll be able to improve the overall experience of everybody on the offense, whereas Shador is more of a guy that exists within the experience and operates your experience to perfection. And I think that's fine, but that makes them two different prospects. But it's just funny to me how, you got Tyler Shuck, you got Jackson Dart, who are they're solid guys. But they're getting the Simba in Lion King treatment where they're being thrust up here and everybody's saying they're so good. But then you got, Shador getting treated like Scar. And I don't understand it.
Well, Cam Ward's not getting treated badly.
Well, right, because Cam, and again, you just completely missed what I said.
Sure.
A lot of people don't like his father, Shador's father,
true.
so they're right.
Ashton Genty, there's a lot of talk right now about Jacksonville at 5 wanting Ashton Genty. Do you buy that? And if you were a Titan fan, TD, would you hate Genty to the Jags, or would you hate Mason Graham or Tyler Warren or one of those guys more?
Yeah, I don't think you hate any of that. I think it's inevitable, right? And I think the talk of Genty to the Jags is real. I mean, Mike DeRocco in our mock draft, that's what he put in there. That was his selection. So either way, right, all of the guys are going to be a good, whoever, they're going to impact the team. So it's just like as a Titans fan or as a coach or whatever, the way I would look at it is, okay, it's just one more thing that we have to beat. Bring it. It's just as Denard Wilson say, another faceless opponent.
So it's funny because when it comes to Ashton Genty, there's this talk about the Bears at 10 desperately want Genty, and Jacksonville at 5 may take him. And it kind of reminds me, TD, I don't know if you remember this or not. Do you remember when Curtis Enis was coming out in 1998 and how Jacksonville was the team that desperately wanted Curtis Enis, and Chicago took him, and Jacksonville ended up taking Fred Taylor, and we all know that Fred Taylor ended up being the better pro than Curtis Enis, and I just kind of see a similarity there. What about these first-round receivers, TD? Because, you know, Tedero McMillan's on TV right now. We've seen him as high as 12 to the Cowboys. Some people prefer the faster Matthew Golden. We've talked about Luther Burden and Emeka Egbuka. You know, do we see a run on the receivers at some point, and how many do we expect to go tonight?
That's a good question. I would say so. Golden, Ted. I wouldn't be surprised if 4 go. I still think there's a good chance that, you know, and also how do you categorize Hunter? You know what I mean? How do you categorize him a receiver? If that, then that pushes the number. I would say 4 is a reasonable number. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Luther Burden and Abu could go. So, you know, that would push you at 4.5 with Hunter being in the mix. So there's going to be a run. I think it's either going to come at the bottom part of the first or that top part of the second, just like the DNs.
And then the last one on the first round, TD, is Mike Vrabel really going to take the short arm tackle out of LSU? And if he does, after just never entertaining the idea of playing Peter Skoronski at left tackle, will he play the short arm tackle at left tackle this time?
Yeah, listen, from what I've gathered, Will Campbell is very much a Mike Vrabel guy as far as their approach, the toughness, etc. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's not the pick. But I will say this, and this is something that I need you to stop doing, is just generalizing. Just because Will Campbell is a short arm tackle and Peter Skoronski is a short arm tackle, that doesn't make them the same. There's other attributes that go into this thing as opposed to just the arm. So you got to stop just grouping these guys together.
Well, isn't that why they wouldn't play Skoronski at tackle though? Was because he had short arms?
That was part of why, but they also felt that with his movement and with his strength, they felt that he would be better bumped inside. So I know it doesn't make the best radio to say other than the short arms, but there are other reasons. So you got to stop like just generally categorizing these guys together because they're not the same prospect.
Yeah, but don't you think if Skoronski had longer arms, he would have been a tackle?
Well, I mean, you know what they say about the queen. If she has something else, she'd be the king. That's not the case. So
I know, but this guy's got the same short arms.
Again, it's they're different prospects. They're different. Like, you could have 2 guys that are 6 feet that run 4.2s, but one could be a better hands catcher than the other. Like, just because the physical, like, that doesn't solely make them the same prospect. So it's a worthless exercise to sit here and put them compared just because of their short arms. It's 2 different prospects.
I'm going to go nuts if Vrabel takes the short arm tackle and puts him at tackle after he refused to do it with Skoronski, and we had to watch Dillard and Duncan play left tackle. I mean, if there was a way to sue him for that, I would do it.
Hey, well, that'll make good radio.
Negligent.
May not make much sense, but it'll make good radio.
It made no sense to watch Dillard and Duncan play left tackle every week. Negligent coaching. Is that a suable offense? It should be.
I think that's negligent evaluation. Frankly, to put 2 guys together just because they got short arms. They're not the same prospect.
TD,
period.
Questions for TD are next. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. 2 hours and 11 minutes away from round number 1 when the Titans draft Cam Ward officially. TD Power Hour live out at Twin Peaks in Madison. TD, do you have a thought or do you want to go right to the people?
Nah, to the people, man.
Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Cedric is going to kick us off. Cedric, you're on with TD. Thank you for calling. Go ahead. Cedric.
We don't have Cedric.
It said wide receiver draft. I am fascinated by what his question would be. I'll say this to you, TD, which is if there was a receiver that you were circling for the Titans, we know they're not going to be able to get Golden or Travis Hunter or whatever, but if there was a receiver you were circling for the Titans, who would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I would say Burden. I think Burden is the perfect type of receiver for the Titans. And you look at what you want to do for a rookie quarterback. Like, you want to bring somebody in that gets you those free yards. And I think he's that type of player. And his skill set, I think, is outstanding. He's the complete player. So he's the one. Just have to figure out, how to really coach him hard and effectively. And I think once you do that, you're fine.
TD, one texter says, do you think Simmons gets dealt this week? And do you think Levis or Burks get dealt this week?
I don't think Simmons gets dealt. I'd be very surprised. I think very likely Levis. Burks, I mean, you can't trade him right now. Like, you can't. He's still, in the injury status as far as the knee is concerned. He's probably not even going to be ready for training camp. So how can you trade him?
One texter says, TD, do you think the Titans will search the veteran tight end market after the draft to add to the room for Cam Ward?
Yeah, I think it's very possible. I think you look at some of the guys, it's all going to depend. If Mark Andrews shakes free somehow, yes, but I don't think they're making a trade. I think it's something that they may do like free agent wise, like a guy gets released, June 1st, you always have veterans that come available. So that kind of thing.
One texter says, TD, what do you make of the Titans and day 3 and what they may be able to do there?
Yeah, I think you could still get receivers. You look at Dante Thornton, who was here in the building. You look at Elijah Badger, who they've had interest in. You can still get receivers. I think, you may not look as much towards edge guys, defensive ends. You might be able to get a depth option or something like that. But I think you could also get cornerbacks. And I think, obviously L'Jarius Sneed and the things that, are surrounding him because of whatever happened. Whatever did happen is wrong. Let's be clear about that. But that could end up keeping him from, being an impact for all 17 games or for any game. So Quincy Riley is a guy I know they've been very, very high on. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. He's from Louisville, so I'm sure you're familiar with him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up a Titan. So that's another one to look at. But I think there's a lot of other, like, there's depth that you could acquire at the offensive line, right? They still need that swing guard, center, swing tackle, then you need that guard center prospect too. So there's a lot of directions that they could go.
Okay, so when it comes to the corner position, because I was thinking about this today, is there any of these guys that look to be bottom of the first round guys, whether it's Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky, Trey Amos out of Ole Miss, Siobhan Ravel, who's recovering from a torn ACL at East Carolina? Are there any of those corners that kind of perk your attention? Like, if you were to say, hey, Sneed's not going to be playing this year, or hey, Sneed's knees, like if the doctor said, TD, that knee's so bad, like it's not going to, would any of those guys be of interest to you?
It's just so funny to me. Like, you swear that the injury was a knee, and I gotta laugh at it. I mean, it was a quad injury.
I got intel that said it was a knee.
It was a quad, but yeah, okay. I'll play the game with you. I don't really think there's any. I don't think this team is in a position where they have the luxury of making a what if this happens type of pick, at the level where you have those guys that you mentioned. I think that's a pick where, like, you look at the 4th round, I think Quincy Riley, that's extreme value there. I think he's a guy that makes sense in that position. I think you look at Jacoby Bryant, or Kobe Bryant, as he wants to be called. I think you look at him, that's another day 3 guy that you could get. And I'm going to tell you, man, I remember at Shrine, like that dude, he shut everything down for 2 straight days. And there was nothing that could be done with him. And then he was like, yo, I'm done. And didn't practice or play in the game after that. So he's another one.
Do you think that would piss a team off?
No, not at all. It's understandable. Like, I mean, look, if you had 2 really good days, and a lot of these prospects do that. Like, they have, a good a couple of days, and they shut it down for the rest of the week. It's understand, like, as a team, like, you got to understand. Okay, he came out, he showed what he could do, and then after that, we continue to have interest. We'll have him in the building. We'll see him at the combine. We'll see him at, there's other opportunities.
One texter says, TD, why is Luther Burden dropping so far on the big boards? You've been high on him from the beginning, and you're usually right when it comes to these high-end draft prospects. Why is Burden falling down the boards?
Oh, yeah. There's some things out there. He does have, from what I understand, exterior influences, I guess we'll put it that way, and exterior influence, I'll say it like that, that can be perceived as a bad one. I think also, not one that would lead him into trouble or anything like that, but a distraction. There's also a question on, how is he as far as like handling coaching, as far as like, just do you love the game, or do you love what the game does for you? And I think those are some of the things that have to be worked through. And I would imagine whatever team gets him, like, he's been my top receiver all through this whole process, and I haven't wavered from that. Um, I haven't, spent a 30-minute one-on-one conversation with him. I talked to him a few times, but nothing like that extensive. I still remain that. To me, if I could have any receiver skill-wise in this draft, I'm taking him, and that's over Matthew Golden, who is really, really good as well.
TD, last one for you. This one's from me. What would be the most shocking? Again, not like the most shocking, like Tyler Shutt goes number 1 overall. But what tonight, do you see happening that you think will shock people, a la Michael Penix last year?
Hey, I mean, let's stay on the quarterback side of things. I could see Jackson Dart getting picked ahead of Shador Sanders. And that's not to say I feel that he's better, because full well I don't. But I could see that. You look at a team like, just apparently the Giants like Dart more than Sanders. So I could
Apparently
see
the
them.
GM's kid does.
Oh, really? The GM's kid again, huh?
He posted an Instagram and then made his Instagram private.
Whoops.
But an
Well,
Instagram story about how great Jackson Dart is.
Hey, there it is right there.
TD, great stuff. Enjoy the draft. We'll talk soon.
For sure. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Don't go too crazy today. Keep your blood pressure low.
If Vrabel takes the short arm tackle, I'll go crazy because, again, I had to watch Dillard and Duncan and for that whole year. Negligent coaching. That should be a thing you can sue over. Great stuff, TD, as always. Okay, I've got some intel. I actually have some intel on Shador Sanders that I want to get to next. And Stillman and Company mock draft 3.0, our final mock draft ahead of tonight. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 again. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios, and presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. We are live at Twin Peaks in Madison, less than 1 hour away from the start of draft night in Nashville. Trevor Maddich, Derek Mason, Chris Sanders will all be here breaking down the draft and what that will set up for the Titans at pick number 1. So I did get some info, and this was completely unsolicited on Shador Sanders. But I talked to an agent who represents a high draft prospect that is not Shador. And the agent said that Shador Sanders is not going to go in the first round. Said that nobody wants to take him. That since the start of the whole process, that apparently he was a prima donna at the combine and that he made everyone, including other draft prospects, wait on him for various functions. That turned some teams off. This is not about Deion. Apparently, Deion was a good teammate and respectful of his teammates, but that does not appear to be the consensus on Shador. So somebody says to me that Shador is not going in the first round. Well, will he go in the final Stillman and Company mock draft 3.0? We start at the very top. Number 1, Titans on the clock, and they select Cam Ward, the quarterback out of Miami. That one's obvious. Number 2, Travis Hunter goes to the Cleveland Browns, and they're going to play him at wide receiver out at Colorado. Number 3, the Giants. Now it starts to get interesting. Abdul Carter's got the foot injury, but he still goes off the board. Abdul Carter, 3 overall. He will go to the Giants. Now the Patriots. I remember when the Titans took the All-American left tackle out of Northwestern. He had short arms, 32.25-inch arms for Peter Skoronski. But Mike Vrabel's stubborn. So he's going to do the same thing again, even though it's already burned him once. Will Campbell, the tackle out of LSU, will go to the Patriots, even though I think he's more of a right tackle than he is a left tackle. He goes to the Patriots with the 4th overall pick. Jacksonville, now's where it starts to get interesting. There are some rumors about Ashton Genty. There is a big belief that it could be Mason Graham, the defensive lineman. But I still think the tight end Tyler Warren is going to be too much to pass up for Jacksonville. Liam Cohen in Jacksonville is going to want a tight end for Trevor Lawrence. They've moved on from Evan Ingram. Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State, that's the first surprise tonight, goes at 5 to Jacksonville. The Raiders at 6. Everybody thinks they're going to take Ashton Genty, but they've got Mason Graham, the defensive lineman. They've got a need on the defensive line, and he's a higher-rated player on their board. They go Mason Graham out of Michigan. The Jets at 7. Well, remember the old days at Radio City Music Hall when the Jet fans would boo the picks and would cheer them and would everything else? This one's easy. They're going to go tackle. Morgan Moses is left in free agency. He's now in New England. Tyron Smith is retired. They drafted Olu Fashanu in the first round. He'll play left tackle. Armand Membu, the tackle out of Missouri, will be the 7th overall pick to the Jets, Jets. 8 is Carolina. We have our first trade of the night. The 49ers move up from 11, and they go get Walter Nolan, the defensive lineman out of Ole Miss. He has shot up the board lately, but he was a highly ranked recruit, a productive player at Ole Miss. Walter Nolan at 8 to San Francisco. Number 9, New Orleans is there. We've heard about Jackson Dart, and we've heard about the Saints. But the Saints trade out of the pick, our second trade, and this one is a whammy. The Houston Texans move up from 25 to 9 and draft Kelvin Banks Jr., the tackle out of Texas. He will be the long-term replacement at left tackle for Laramie Tunsil. They'll start him at guard, and then they'll move him out to replace Tunsil. Houston pounces with the run-on tackles, Campbell and Membu off the board. They go get Kelvin Banks at number 9. The Chicago Bears couldn't be happier. They're sitting there at number 10. They want Ashton Genty, and Ashton Genty is their Chicago. Ben Johnson, first-year head coach. He goes with Ashton Genty, the running back out of Boise State, with the 10th overall pick. Carolina's at 11. They traded with San Francisco. They need a defensive back. They really, really would like a defensive end, but they're okay with Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia. Again, best player available. They think he can be a Minka Fitzpatrick type player for their defense. How about them Cowboys? Dallas on the clock at 12. This is going to be a shocker. But Jerry Jones says, I want him. He needs a pass rusher to replace DeMarcus Lawrence, and that's James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. The first edge rusher off the board after Abdul Carter is James Pierce to the Cowboys at 12. The Dolphins at 13. They need a DB, and Jahade Barron is their guy, the corner out of Texas. He's got short arms too, which makes him an outlier, but with the injured knee, the red flag to Will Johnson, who was considered to be the top corner, not named Travis Hunter, in the draft, he falls. Jahade Barron goes at 13 to the Miami Dolphins. The Colts are up at 14. They need a tight end. There's a tight end there. Colston Loveland out of Michigan. He's their guy with the 14th overall pick. Meanwhile, the Falcons, they can't believe their luck. At 15, this is easy. They sprint the card into the podium. Jalen Walker, the linebacker out of Georgia, goes with the 15th overall pick. He doesn't go far. He goes to the Atlanta Falcons. 16, Arizona trades back. Denver moves up. A lot of people think Denver wants a running back. No, it's the receiver, Matthew Golden out of Texas. They've already got Cortland Sutton outside. They traded Jerry Jeudy last year. They've got the young quarterback, Matthew Golden. This, again, is to get out ahead of the other teams that may make moves for wide receivers in the first round. This is going to start a little mini run on the receivers. Matthew Golden at 16 to the Broncos. The Bengals, they don't need a receiver. They're picking 17th. They go with Jahad Campbell, the linebacker out of Alabama. They've got to get that defense better. The Seahawks at 18, they need, desperately, they need a guard. And Tyler Booker out of Alabama is their choice. A lot of people think they're going to go Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. Tyler Booker's their choice, and the reason why is because Kalen DeBoer, the Alabama coach, from the Washington area when he coached at Washington, they know the Seahawks personnel well, and so Tyler Booker goes off the board at 18 overall. Tampa Bay can't believe their luck. Mike Green, who many people have going in the top 10, Mike Green, the edge rusher out of Marshall, he goes to Tampa Bay at 19 overall. Meanwhile, Arizona has traded back to 20. And remember, the first guard's already gone off the board, Tyler Booker. They don't waste any time. Gray Zabel, North Dakota State, he's going to play guard, but he's listed as a tackle. He's going to be a guard. He goes off the board to Arizona at 20. Now it gets interesting. Shador Sanders has not gone off the board. Jackson Dart has not gone off the board. The Pittsburgh Steelers with the 21st pick in the draft select Jackson Dart, the quarterback out of Ole Miss. Jackson Dart does, in fact, go ahead of Shador Sanders. The Steelers thought, could we trade back and get him? But with all the chatter about the Giants trying to move up to get back into the first round to take Jackson Dart, Pittsburgh says, nope, we're going to take the guy we like the best. New Orleans is at 25 as well. We don't want to screw with that. Jackson Dart at 21 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. This has been the easiest pick for me the entire time. 22, Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver out of Ole Miss, goes to Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers. Why? Because even though Emeka Egbuka is not some super stud athlete and was never the best receiver on his team, Jim Harbaugh had to coach against him. He's the all-time leading receiver at The Ohio State University, and I don't think Harbaugh is going to pass on the stability that Emeka Egbuka represents. Emeka Egbuka 22 to the Chargers. The Packers, they need a receiver. They're bummed. Golden's gone. Ibuka's gone. They take the last one there. Tetaroa McMillan from Arizona at 23 goes to the Green Bay Packers for Jordan Love. Minnesota, they're trying to trade out at 24. There's just not going to be a team. that wants to get up there. They've called everyone, hey, would you have interest in Shador Sanders? Nope. They will go with Kenneth Grant, the defensive lineman out of Michigan. Now the Saints are on the clock at 25. Remember, they traded down earlier with the Houston Texans, who made that big move up. They go with Luther Burden III, the wide receiver out of Missouri. I just don't see Burden falling out of the first round. Again, a little mini run on receivers here. New Orleans, yes, they picked up the fifth-year option on Chris Olave, but who knows with his concussions. They go with best player available, Luther Burden III. LA on the clock. They want a tight end, but there's not a tight end there. They go best player available as well. Will Johnson, the corner out of Michigan. He's got a little bit of a knee concern. He's got a little bit of a hamstring concern. That's okay. They'll take Will Johnson at 26. The Ravens cannot believe their luck because they need an edge rusher. And Michael Williams out of Georgia is on the board, and it's a slam dunk. They take him at 27. He goes to the Ravens. Meanwhile, the Detroit Lions are on the clock. They also need an edge rusher. We saw last year what happened when they lost the one guy they had. This one, Donovan Ezeraku, he is the leading sacker in college football from a year ago. He is picked number 28 to the Detroit Lions. Meanwhile, the Commanders are now on the board at 29. This might be a heart pick here. They need a guard. They just traded for Laramie Tunsil to play tackle, but they need a guard. Donovan Jackson, the guard tackle out of Ohio State. I freaking love this kid. He can play both guard and tackle at a high level. He goes at 29 to the Washington Commanders. The Bills are on the clock at 30, and we have a trade. The New York Giants trade a third rounder this year and a second rounder next year to the Buffalo Bills to move up from 34 to draft Shador Sanders, the quarterback out of Colorado, goes off the board at 30 to the New York Giants. The Chiefs, they're going best offensive lineman available. We know they've had tons of problems. Eventually, they're going to have to get rid of Jawan Taylor. Who knows if their left tackle can play? They go Josh Connerly Jr., the tackle out of Oregon. And there's no good Georgia player for the Eagles to take at 32. But the Eagles take the top player on the board, a corner to go with Cooper DeJean, to go with Quinyon Mitchell, Trey Amos, the corner out of Ole Miss. From Cam Ward to Trey Amos tonight, that's who goes in the Stillman and Company Mock Draft 3.0. And I was a little shocked myself. Shador Sanders at 30 goes to the New York Giants. Your reaction, 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Plus, what would be good for the Titans tonight? We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, the draft show starts at the top of the hour, 1025, 1063 The Game.
Stephen A., what's your reaction to Sanders now being projected to fall to pick 29?
I'm appalled by it. I really don't like it at all because I think that you can't tell me, guys. Listen, I'm going to look forward to watching y'all throughout the day talk about the NFL. You know how I feel about you guys. You know that I feel that no matter what I think I know, I learn more from you guys every single day because y'all all played in the NFL, and I'm proud to talk about the job that you do exceptionally covering the league the way that you do. I'm just an outsider that's covered sports for over 30 years. And I don't like the fact that I'm looking at a guy that has gone from speculation about being the number 1 overall pick between him and Cam Ward to being maybe the number 3 pick to the New York Giants, to being the number 6 pick of the Las Vegas Raiders, to being number 9 for the New Orleans Saints, to dropping down to 21 at the Pittsburgh Steelers, to going in the mock drafts where he's going to be 29th, whether it's Mel Kiper Jr. or somebody else saying it. Okay, not that he deserves it, but they're saying that's what's projected. I'm trying to figure out what the hell is this precipitous drop all about? That's my problem.
That was Stephen A. Smith. Today, he's mad if Shador Sanders drops. Who knows if Shador Sanders goes again? We have him going in our mock draft at 30 to the New York Giants. I do believe Jackson Dart will go ahead of Shador Sanders. Now, let me just say this when it comes to Sanders. This is the story of the draft. And I've been told by an agent who is in the know. Reed, you don't have to say who it is, but you know whose agent it is, and I think you can say that it's probably in the know.
I would say this is pretty close.
He says Shador Sanders is not going in the first round. He's telling me that Shador Sanders is not going in the first round. So make of that what you will. Shador Sanders not going in the first round tonight is great news for the Titans. And I'm going to tell you why it's great news for the Titans. Because tonight, after the draft's over, everybody kind of huddles back up and decides what their game plan is for round 2. When it comes to making trades tonight, you've got 15 minutes. So if Shador Sanders starts falling and a team like the Browns or the Giants or even a team that has a starting quarterback, but, we're thinking about the future here, the Rams, somebody like that, if they want to start to get back up, well, they've only got 15 minutes to make a decision and get the owner involved and but if the owner sits back there and says, hold on, wait a minute. Whoa. We can get Shador Sanders? Let's trade up. Then that means that tomorrow we could see either the Giants trade the pick, the Browns trade the pick, and that's a guy that comes off the board, which means a better player filters down to you, or we could see somebody call you. Maybe the Browns love Tyler Shuck or Jalen Milroe. So they would have taken him over Shador anyways. Tyler Shuck goes at 33. Now here come the Giants. The Giants, they didn't want Shador to begin with, so they don't. Now you're there at 35. They really love a player. Let's say Donovan, well, they wouldn't take Ezra Rock if they already took Abdul Carter, but whatever. Emeka Ibuka, whatever. That guy's there. Now somebody's calling you during the day tomorrow saying, hey, if Sanders is there, we'd have interest. So, again, I personally am rooting, not because I just want to see Stephen A. melt down on TV tomorrow, because he will. Not because I cannot wait. I'm on Robbie and Rex Road at 7 tomorrow. And if Shador Sanders is still on the board when I go on Robbie and Joe tomorrow, although I don't know if I'm going to be able to make a 7 a.m. wake-up call for given the fact that we'll be on here at Twin Peaks until midnight. But if I'm on Robbie and Joe tomorrow at 7 and Shador Sanders doesn't go, I will be yelling and screaming about TV prospect to Joe Rex Road, which, by the way, that may be what decides whether or not I actually end up doing the Robbie and Rex Road hit tomorrow. Is if Shador goes, then I'll probably sleep in. If Shador is on the board, I may have to wake my ass up for it. But that's just that. I think it's good for the Titans if Shador Sanders is on the board tomorrow. I think it's good for the Titans. Let's go to Jared. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Jared, thank you for calling and thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Jared, you got to go into Robbie and Retro because you're going to get music thrown at you anyway. So you might as well go ahead and get it over with one way or the other. Also, too, one about another pick, I'm going to say Cam Ward for the end, but I really don't like – I mean, I do like the pick to Jacksonville, the Warren to Jacksonville. That's just scary to me because Evan Ingram already torched us, and I feel like this guy's a better caliber player, and we have very little linebacker presence. Playing him 2 times a year is going to be tough. It's going to be tough cover. And then, man, I really wish the Titans would go back to groupthink on this one and not try to think out of the box because you can't preach patience, and nor can you preach, hey, we're going to take the best player on the board and we're going to be, disciplined in our process. Because it just seems like taking Cam Ward is even more of a need than Latham, even more of a need than Skoronski. And you already see what that's gotten us. I would love to see us take Travis Hunter at number 1. I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't think that the Titans have the infrastructure set in place. They need to have some self-awareness and understand that and put off the quarterback. We don't want a quarterback. We want the quarterback. The quarterback, y'all. Tighten up.
Okay, so when it comes to this idea that some of you may be holding out hope, and I'm a little surprised by this because I ignored the questions for TD in the text line that were, TD, do you think we'll trade back from number 1? It's like, no, they've already told you. If you're holding out hope that the Titans are not going to take Cam Ward, you will be disappointed. He is going to be the pick, period. Like he is going to be the pick. That is, at the end of the day, a reality. The draft is starting at really 4 with New England, but it feels like they're going to take the short arm tackle out of LSU and Will Campbell. And so it really starts, in my opinion, with Jacksonville at 5. Is Jacksonville going to go Genty or are they going to go Graham? I think they're going to go Warren, and that's why they've put out there that they're going to go Genty or thrown out there the idea that they may go Graham because I think they're going to go Warren, but that's really where the intrigue starts. They're not trading the pick. Cam Ward is going to be a Tennessee Titan in 1 hour and 47 minutes. He will be a Tennessee Titan, period. I wish I was wrong. But again, anything short of him turning around and slugging Laura Rutledge on the red carpet in Green Bay, they're taking Cam Ward. So I agree with you. I don't think that Cam Ward is some sort of elite prospect. You know, I had somebody, when I talked about how I want Cam Ward to sit the bench, somebody said, they go, well, Jaden Daniels didn't sit the bench. Well, he's not Jaden Daniels. If he was Jaden Daniels, I wouldn't have wanted Sam Darnold. I would have said, just take Jaden Daniels. He's not Jaden Daniels. 615-737-1025 here on our program, 615-737-1025. So we talked about Sanders and saying that would be good for the Titans. What else would be good for the Titans? We'll get to that coming up. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
you want to surround the young quarterback with as much, talent and have the environment for him to succeed. But at the same time, we're building a team here too as well. So, we have to do what's best for the team at that point. Of course, we'd like to go out and give that player everything he needs. But, our thinking is right now there's a lot of holes in this roster, and, we have to make the best decision for the team in terms of value of that player.
There you go. That was Mike Borgonzi, the Titans general manager. So, hey, just because they're taking a young quarterback does not mean with the 35th pick that they will take a receiver to go with the young quarterback, or that they will take a tight end to go with the young quarterback, or that they will take something like that when it comes to the young quarterback. So here's what I think would be good for the Titans tonight, because we're going to have the draft show again starting at 6 o'clock live right here at Twin Peaks, but we're going to probably be looking at the Titans and saying, okay, what's good for the Titans after they pick Cam Ward? Again, it'd be great if Travis Hunter were to fall all the way to 35. That's not going to happen. So here's what I think would be good for the Titans. First off, I think we need to assess kind of what they need now that Tyler Lockett's in the mix. I still think they need a tight end. I am not a Chigakonkwo guy. I'm not going to become a Chigakonkwo guy. You're not going to change my mind on Chigakonkwo. I still think they need a tight end. I think they still need a slot receiver because Tyler Lockett is an outside guy and Calvin Ridley is an outside guy. I think they still need a swing tackle. Again, you don't have to take that with the 35th pick in the draft, but they do need a swing tackle. And I think they need an edge rusher. I think they need a corner because I know that L'Jarius Sneed has a bad knee. And I think they need an inside backer. So here's what would be good tonight for the Titans. Number one, all of the tackles. Again, I'd like a swing tackle, but we're trying to push out the receivers and the defensive ends and everything else to the Titans. So if all of the tackles go off the board, Will Campbell, Armand Membu, Kelvin Banks, Simmons from Ohio State, Josh Connerly, Donovan Jackson, if they all go off the board in the first round, then that may push a receiver or push an edge rusher to the Titans. I think the second thing that would be good for the Titans tonight is Omarion Hampton, the second running back, goes in the first round, again, pushing another receiver perhaps or edge rusher to the Titans. Will Johnson, the corner at Michigan, he's got a knee injury that's been flagged. A lot of people thought when this thing began that he was going to be a top 10 pick. He's clearly not going to be that. He had a hamstring issue during the combine and pro days, and then he's got apparently a knee issue that's been flagged. So if Will Johnson goes off the board with the if he goes off the board inside the top 20 or maybe even in the 25 range, that's good. That might push somebody back. And then I would argue that if there's a run on defensive linemen, and when I look at the mock drafts, these defensive linemen are going all over the place. Walter Nolan, I've seen him as high as 11 going in the first round to San Francisco, but I've also seen him in these mock drafts not being included in the first round. Kenneth Grant out of Michigan, Derek Harmon out of Oregon. If all of those guys go, that would be good for the Titans. And it's a very deep defensive lineman draft, so maybe those guys don't go. But if they get those guys plus Mason Graham off the board, again, that may push the edge rushers that were bottom of the first round guys or middle of the first round guys into pick 35. And that's the kind of player I think the Titans should be targeting. Donovan Ezaraku would be that kind of player. James Pierce Jr., again, I don't know about the off the field issues with Pierce. That's the kind of player I think the Titans would be targeting there. And then finally, I think it would be a good thing for the Titans if Shador Sanders falls to day 2. Somebody may want to trade to get up to 35 to take Shador Sanders. Somebody may try to either take him the Browns or the Giants at 33 or 34, which means they won't take a player you want. Something may happen. And because of that, I think that would be good for the Titans. So again, all the tackles, Omarion Hampton, Will Johnson, all the defensive linemen, all go today. and Shador Sanders doesn't. That, I think, would be a good day for the Titans. Again, it'd be nice if Colston Loveland, the tight end out of Michigan, falls to the Titans. It's not going to happen. The other thing to keep in mind is there's always going to be a guy who ends up, when all the mock drafts say that they're going to go in the first round and they don't. And I don't know who that's going to be tonight, but there's going to be somebody that I think fits that mold. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. Our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter says, Jared, why are the Titans so sold on Cam Ward? Callahan looked scared to death during the press conference this week. I do not think he is on board with Cam Ward. So I think Brian Callahan is just going along to get along. I didn't think, and I watched the press conference, I didn't think he was scared to death or anything. I think Callahan was just up there and was going to answer, and I think it was rehearsed, but he was going to answer whatever he was asked, and I think he was fine. I believe that Brian Callahan is, again, if I was Brian Callahan, I'd be pushing for Cam Ward because you can win 7 games next year with Cam Ward or 8 games with Cam Ward next year and keep your job. Whereas if you had signed Jameis Winston and had won 6 or 7 games, you're fired. Now, why are the Titans all in on Cam Ward? That I can't tell you. Again, I believe all these guys that have done this before, Bill Polian, the guy that drafted Peyton Manning and Kerry Collins and Jim Kelly, when he's like, this guy's not even Jared Goff. I believe Thomas Dimitrov when he says they need to trade out to number 10. I believe Pat Kerwin when he says do not overdraft this quarterback. I believe Rick Spielman when he says he's a better version of Tyrod Taylor. I believe those guys. But the Titans apparently seem to love him. And I think maybe their inexperience. You know, when you're inexperienced in something, you always think, oh, this will be easy. Oh, yeah, I'll just start on a radio show and I'll just talk into a microphone and everybody will listen. And that's not really how it works. And I've had those experiences, trust me. Inexperienced general manager, inexperienced team president, inexperienced coach. I mean, the coach is up there saying, hey, I've done this before. I've done this. We developed Joe Burrow. Man, Joe Burrow? What are we talking about here? This guy's not Joe Burrow. Nobody thinks this guy's Joe Burrow. But again, when you're inexperienced, you think it's easier than it is. That's why I think that they're taking Cam Ward. That's why I think they're so sold. Tommy says, what if they're bluffing and they take Travis Hunter just to trade back in the first round to take Jackson Dart? What if this is all just a Houdini act? You know, normally I would tell you that if they got up there and said something last week, don't buy it. Who knows? But they're not picking 9th, where they don't want anyone behind them to know who they're picking so they can trade up, where they don't want anybody in front of them to know who they're picking so that they would take them. They're picking first. Nobody can get in front of them. If this were the old days before the rookie pay scale, Cam Ward's contract would already be done. And he'd be the highest paid player in the NFL, which is crazy. But it would already be done. Because that's how they used to do this before the rookie wage scale. It's done. It's going to be Ward. There's no cat in the bag here. There's no special something. This time last year at Twin Peaks, we all remember the infamous meltdown that I had when the Titans drafted J.C. Latham. I turned my phone over because I don't want to see the picks being tipped. You know, I wanted the real reaction of when they drafted. And when I heard them draft J.C. Latham again, I went crazy. I don't need to do that today. They're taking Cam Ward. There's no little extra special something or another. They're taking Cam Ward. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. The Titans say they have a plan for the young quarterback. Will they tell us their plan tonight? We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5-1063 The Game. And let's give something away. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025. And you will be going to see Metallica. That's right. Caller 5 wins a pair of tickets to see Metallica at Nissan Stadium on Saturday, May 3rd with special guests Limp Bizkit and Ice 9 Kills. Good luck there. Stillman and Company, 102.5-1063 The Game.
when we brought in Steve McNair, I said it'll take him a couple of years to learn, the offense, what we're going to do. It'll take him a couple of years to learn the league. Then we'll be ready to go. Then we'll be off and running. And he was lucky enough to have, the same offense, the same type system, many of the same coaches and things like that. So that helped.
We told the press that night, we said, now don't come to us every week if we don't win and say, when's McNair going to start? I'm telling you, McNair will not play this year. I said, he'll play a little bit next year, and then we'll go from there. And sure enough, Steve ended up playing like maybe the fourth quarter of a few games and maybe half of a game or whatever.
There you go. That was the great Floyd Reese talking about Steve McNair and the Titans' decision to take Steve McNair with the 3rd overall pick in 95. And again, what they did right after, which was they ran right to the podium and they said he's not going to play this year. Today, I would feel much better. We all know they're going to take Cam Ward. This idea that some of you have out there in La La Land, that the Titans are going to take Cam Ward or that they're going to pull some kind of magic out of the hat and they're going to draft Abdul Carter or they're going to draft Travis Hunter or they're not going to do that. They're going to draft Cam Ward. The question I have is what will they say after they take Cam Ward? Will Cam Ward be their starting quarterback on week 1? They will be asked about that today. What will they say? Again, I'm not saying they need to say because I don't think Cam Ward needs to sit for the whole year. So I don't think they need to run to the podium and say Cam Ward's not going to play this year. But I do think that they need to not commit to him starting. And if I were the Titans, I would take him and I would give you guys the impression that I am willing to sit him this year. And I am willing to start Brandon Allen, who stinks. I am willing to do that if that means that I'm going to develop the quarterback the right way. And for everybody out there that says, well, this isn't Kansas City with Mahomes, you guys keep wanting him to be the next Mahomes. You guys keep wanting him to be the next McNair. You have to do what those teams were willing to do to develop the quarterback. Again, this idea of, well, we don't have Alex Smith on our team, so we can't. Again, I don't care about that. Like, I'm not worried about winning in 2025. I'm worried you can take the quarterback and him becoming the guy in 2027, 2028, and him being a league MVP candidate 5 years from now, not 5 months from now. 615-737-1025. One texter says, if the Titans had brain cells, they would trade out of the number 1 pick and build this team. Shador Sanders would thrive under Callahan. Let's see if anybody takes Shador Sanders tonight. Again, the odds are plummeting with Shador Sanders falling out of the first round. Again, I think I'd still be a little surprised by that. I don't think he's going to go in the top 20 picks. But I would be shocked if Shador Sanders, I'm not expecting Shador Sanders to go in the top 20. I think I'd be surprised if he doesn't go in the first round. Again, this is a league that drafts everybody who can play quarterback in the first round. You're overdrafting a quarterback, and you're picking with the first. One texter goes, what do you think of the rumors of the Browns trading back into the first round to reunite Hunter and Sanders? Any rumor this time of the year, I'm not sure I buy. Because I've seen that, they're for sure taking Abdul Carter. And then they're for sure taking Shador Sanders. And now they're for sure taking Travis Hunter. And now they're receiving calls. And Diana Rossini reported an hour ago she wouldn't be surprised if they moved back from 2. I think they're going to take Travis Hunter. And I think they're going to stick at 33 and take a quarterback. Tim Hasselbeck said this weeks ago. He doesn't think that Shador Sanders, that it's that different from Tyler Shuck or that it's that different than the one thing I'll say about the Browns that make them a wild card is you never know when the owner starts to get involved. And I could see that owner getting involved and saying, oh, no, we're taking Shador Sanders. One texter says, there's no way the Cowboys are going edge at 12. They have Micah Parsons, some guy named Keeneland, and Sam. Tank was the 3rd best rusher for them. I don't know who any of those guys are except for Micah Parsons. DeMarcus Lawrence is in Seattle. And Jerry, if he loves somebody, What do we know about Jerry Jones? I want him. I want him. One texter says Sanders will be a Raider. Brady is his mentor. I don't think so. They traded for Geno Smith, and they signed Geno Smith to an extension. And I think it's hilarious because a lot of people took it pretty seriously that, hey, Tom Brady is good friends, and Tom Brady is the mentor, just like this guy said. He's the mentor to Shador Sanders, and immediately they traded a third-round pick for Geno Smith, and they signed Geno to an extension. They're not going quarterback. I could see a team with an older quarterback say, okay, we're going to take Shador and put him on the bench. I think the thing with Shador is this. Number one, I think at the beginning of the process, and Albert Breer reported this in Sports Illustrated, Shador Sanders apparently rubbed people the wrong way, thinking that he was trying to steer where he was going to go. Then he realized, hey, I might not be going to these teams. I need to maybe just try to get hired by these teams and change his tune a little bit. But Shador's small. Shador has a weak arm. Shador's got Dion as a dad, and you know Dion is never going to keep his nose out of that business. And I think teams are like, why do that when we can just take Tyler Shuck and not have to worry about any of it? Why do that when we can just take Jackson Dart? Jackson Dart played better competition. Again, tonight, if you're the Titans, you want to run on the tackles. You want to run on the defensive linemen. You want Omarion Hampton to go off the board today. You want Shador Sanders to be on the board tomorrow. Somebody might try to trade up. That's what you want. Trevor's here. Chris is here. Derek's here. The award-winning pregame show with Trevor. Draft night in Nashville. Live from Twin Peaks and Madison. Plenty of room. Come on out and join us. We start next. Stillman and Company. We will break this all down tomorrow at 2 o'clock. 102.5 and 106 for the game.